Are we gonna start?
It's unmuted.
That's okay.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Louisiana Developmental Disability Council meeting, July 21st, 2022. I'm going to call the meeting to order. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Just welcoming you, welcoming guys that's on the Zoom, and welcoming our YouTubers that's upon watching our meeting today. If Ms. Dell, if you will do a roll call, please. Sure.
Ms. Nicole Banks,
I am here.
Dr. Baravecchio, here. Ms. Bazile,
Present.
Ms. Bayham,
Here.
Mr. Bristow, Ms. Kosei, Ms. Crane,
Here.
Ms. Easley,
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Here.
Gidry, Ms. Foster Hagen,
Here.
Ms. Hayno,
Chelsea.
yeah, I see her.
She's muted.
I'm here. Y'all, it takes me a while to unmute, so just bear with me. Never mind. But I'm here.
Ms. Harmon,
Here.
Ms. Email, Mr. Iddens, Ms. Jordan,
Present.
Dr. McKee, Ms. Polizzola, Ms. Richard, Mr. Rocca,
Here.
Mr. Rivera, Ms. Tarver, Ms. Webb,
Here.
Ms. White, Dr. Wilson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Amy. At this time, can you please put the mission statement and the ground rules on the screen?
Mission statement for the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council is to increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisiana developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read the ground rules so that everyone can know what they are, so we can have a orderly meeting. Council's meeting shall be accessible via Zoom and live stream on YouTube. Council and committee members will participate via Zoom and shall be considered present when displaying a live feed video of their face with their first and last name. Have microphones muted unless called upon by the chair. Electronically raise their hand to request the chair recognize them to speak. Once recognized to speak by the chair, their microphone shall be turned on. After speaking, the microphone shall be returned to mute. Guests may participate via Zoom or observe meetings on live Meetings live upon YouTube. All public meetings shall be recorded and may be available on the council's YouTube channel as determined appropriate by the chairperson. Public comment submitted during a meeting via any format shall be considered during a Zoom meeting. Guests may electronically raise their hand to request comment. Upon being recognized to speak by the chair, their microphone should be turned on. After speaking, the microphone should be returned to mute. Post comments relevant to the item under consideration in the chat box. Post comments during the live stream of the meeting on the YouTube, on council's YouTube channel. Public comments of a person's character will not be heard. If the comment continues after being asked to stop by the chairperson, council staff may be instructed to end the meeting. The chair will notify the executive committee of this occurrence. Council chair will seek guidance to determine if it is legally appropriate to redact the shared video on the YouTube the video of the meeting on the council's social media. All right. And then the next item of business is the approval of the meeting summary. This is the draft of April 21st meeting that was distributed. The summary will not be read unless requested by a member. Are there any corrections to the summary? All right, seeing none in the text box, the summary is approved as distributed. All right. Is there any public comment? All right. Well, the next item of business. Oh, you had a hand go. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Nicole,
Yes.
you do have a hand raised.
Oh, okay.
It is Miss Mary Jacob.
Oh, okay, Ms. Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm Mary Jacob. I am the Executive Director of Families Helping Families of Greater New Orleans. And I wanted to address y'all. I was going to send an email and I decided that this may be a better forum to address this. I've been watching DD Council meetings for a while and I've voiced my opinion, my opinion of some of the things that need to be changed. And I'm glad to see a lot of things are improving, but I still have one huge concern because I watched the executive meeting yesterday and I still believe that this council is failing on their responsibility to properly support the self-advocates on the council. And when I talk about this, I talk about it a lot. Jill Handel knows, I spoke to her this morning about this. I feel like that when there's a misconception that when individuals with disabilities leave high school, they graduate from their disability too. And that's not the case. And the same accommodations that they needed in school, they likely still need as adults. So we know we have adults on that council that are that have disabilities that need help supporting with scribing, with reading things, with understanding. One of the big things that always kind of alarms me is
Ms. Jacobs, I don't mean to interrupt. We would love to hear what you're saying, but right now is not the appropriate time to discuss this topic. So when this does come up in our meeting, we will love to hear what you have to say. But right now we have to continue with what's the business of the meeting as this point goes on, okay? But we will love to hear you when it does come.
Okay, I thought this was public comment time, but okay.
It was public comment in regards to the minutes of the meeting being approved.
Okay, well then let me reform it. Let me rephrase it like this. Are you confident in that the self-advocates on your council have the ability to read, to comprehend, and understand those minutes without being provided support?
And again, I do hear your question and I will answer it at the appropriate time, but right now it's not the appropriate time to entertain this topic. So we're going to table this, and when it comes up, which it will, we'll get back to it. Okay, Ms. Jacobs?
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, the next item of business is the
Ms. Jordan,
chairperson.
you do have another hand raised by Ms. Kathy Dwyer.
Yes, Ms. Dwyer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. As Chair of the Louisiana OCDD State Advisory Committee, I think the DD Council needs to be advised that state open meeting laws require the public comment period, and it is not restricted to what is on the current agenda. It is required for any comment that the public needs to make.
There's a public comment period at the.
Public comment is required at the beginning of each meeting and at the end of each meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Dwyer.
You're welcome.
There is a section up in our agenda that does have public comment, and that is the time where you would express that.
Okay.
Is that at the beginning of the meeting and the end of each meeting?
No, ma'am, it is at the end of the meeting around 3 p.m.
3 p.m. is not the beginning of the meeting. This is the beginning of the meeting right now, and public law requires it at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of each meeting. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just think Ms. Jacob needs to be heard as per the Louisiana open meetings law.
Okay, thank you,
We'll look
Ms.
into
Dwyer. We have looked into it, and we have a parliamentarian that is online, and she has looked up what you guys have said, and this is not accurate. We have to go by what is going up on our agenda.
Okay, then I'll be happy to send you the public meeting laws that does require it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Dr. McKee has her.
Thank you, Ms.
Dr.
Kathy
McKee?
and Mary, of course.
Dr. McKee, you have the floor. I think you're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to be recognized. Thank you so much. I'm wondering if there's a space and time that I can motion to change the agenda to reflect public comment, to be inclusive in the beginning of the meeting. I'm not certain if that was Ms. Jacob or Ms. Dwyer, but she's absolutely correct. Public comment is supposed to be at the beginning of the meeting as well as the end. And I don't know at what point we stop doing that. And I think the parliamentarian is probably adhering to the standards of the agenda that we've already established, right? But I'm not sure if she has been fully aware of the requirements that we need to have on our agenda for public comment to be at the beginning and at the end. And then also public comment is offered when we right after we make a motion. So there's some discussion there. So again, I'm sure maybe the parliamentarian was not aware that we are supposed to have public comment at the beginning, at the end, and at the end. So I can, when it's time for the agenda, I will make a motion to change the agenda to offer opportunity for public comment to be put in the beginning of this agenda.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McKee. Okay, so the next item of business is the chairperson's report. And our chairperson, Mr. Rashad Fiscal, could not make it here, and he will be giving his report in the October's meeting. All right. The next item is the executive committee recommendations.
Ms.
And we're
Jordan,
gonna,
you have a hand raised. Dr. McKee has her hand raised.
Dr. McKee?
So let me rephrase that because I think I wasn't clear. Sometimes that happens. I want a motion to allow some changes, amendment to the agenda today to include public comment at the beginning of this agenda for today's meeting. There's a motion on the floor.
All right, there's a motion on the floor.
I would
Do
like
we
to
have a
second that motion.
Okay. by Lillian,
Someone seconded.
by, Ms. Webb.
Can I first motion then, Nicole?
Had motion first.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Amy?
Dr. Baravecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Bazile,
Yes.
Ms. Bayham,
Yes.
Ms. Kosei, Ms. Crane,
Yes.
Ms. Eagley,
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Ms. Gidry,
Yes.
Ms. Hagan,
Yes.
Ms. Hayno,
yes,
Ms. Harmon,
Yes.
Ms. Hemel,
Yes.
Mr. Edens, Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Dr. McKee,
Yes.
Ms. Bolitzola, Ms. Richard, Mr. Rocco,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera, Ms. Tarver,
Yes.
Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Ms. White, Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
The ayes have it, it passes.
Okay. So the motion passes. So now I'm gonna go back to Ms. Jacob. And Ms. Jacob, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be real clear that I'm not trying to cause any problems here. I just want us to be clear that as the council and represent everybody with disabilities, that we have a huge responsibility of making sure that the very people that we are here to support is in fact getting the support they need to be equal members and to participate fully. And as I said, after watching the executive committee meeting yesterday, it just, my beloved Jill, who was an intern for me for a year, and I've known her for a while, it broke my heart. And I'm so thankful that Dr. Heisen stepped up and made the comment that, could see the anguish on her face, that people with disabilities are no different than the rest of us when it comes to, nobody wants to point out what their weaknesses are. And I know that we're supposed to be able to self-advocate for ourselves and all of that stuff, but we all know that there's certain limitations that people have. And as the council, y'all need to recognize that some of the people on your council is going to need support to be able to fully participate and have meaningful participation. And that's all I'm really trying to say, is that some way or another, this has been going on for years, and the council is moving forward, which is wonderful, but we cannot leave behind this very, very important piece, which is the sole purpose really of the council. I mean, you read the mission statement, building capacity. Well, how are you building capacity in the very self-advocates you have on your council if you're not providing them with the support that they need? So I don't know how that's done. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's done when they're originally put on the council and through an orientation period and you ask them a lot of questions, but sometimes people are not going to step up and raise their hand and say, I need this kind of help, that we're going to have to help them understand. And I understand that we can say, well, in a job interview, you have to do this, but this is the DD Council. This is the group of people that represent the people. So we need to do a better job at that. That's all I really am trying to impress upon y'all. Thank you.
Okay.
And let me back up a second, just say this too. And one of the times that it really bugs me when it happens is when meeting agendas do change. Now, what just happened isn't a big deal, but somewhere along this meeting, I promise you, somebody is going to make a motion and somebody's going to want to change it. And the very people that we're talking about here, the people with developmental disabilities, may not understand what's happening and changing emotions. They may need extra time. They may need it explained to them to make sure they understand. So it's the meetings, we do have to think about every step we take and what we do, how that impacts that person with that developmental disability. And are we doing something that is taking away their ability to participate? Because I don't think just abstaining from a vote is good enough if they choose to do that. I think they should have the right to understand what has changed and how we can to make sure they understand what is being changed and to give them the time to process that or to do whatever is necessary to be able to still be a meaningful participant. And I'm going to go now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jacob. We do appreciate your public comment. Ms. Jill, you have the floor.
Yes, I face this. I'm trying to get back on to do my 8-year term, but I have faced this same battle when I got on 2016, when Sandy and Sean was there, because I always needed help as a self-advocate. And I felt like no one stepped up. Because when I wanted to try to make change on behalf of developmental disabilities, they didn't even step up to understand and give me the big picture. And I've been disabled my whole life, and I try to represent the state and the government and everything. So I just wish that people can understand and give me the benefit and self-advocates, the benefit of doubt, and say, this is what this is all about. Because I faced the same battle back in 2016.
Okay, thank you, Jill. We
You're welcome.
appreciate you.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just being honest. And I felt like I was left to the side and said, why can't y'all give me the big picture?
Okay,
Ms. Banks, you do have a hand raised and a comment.
all right. I'm not sure who has their hand raised.
Actually, two hands now, Miss Kathy Dwyer and Miss Karanda Corley.
Okay, Miss Corley, you have the floor.
This is Kathy Dwyer. I received a message that to unmute, so I'm guessing someone threw the microphone over to me. If I can wait for Ms. Corley, if you would like. Or I can proceed.
Ms. Dwyer did have her hand raised first.
Okay, go ahead, proceed, Ms. Dwyer. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Mary Jacob and I have discussed this when, as members of the Jefferson Parish Regional Advisory Committee. And when I was chair back then, we arranged for a training by Dell, who is pretty well known in training in terms of various issues for individuals with developmental disabilities. And one thing she had suggested, and I at least tried to do as chair of the Regional Advisory Committee, was let our self-advocates know that if they needed support, that we would provide a mentor for them of their choosing if they want, but it would be somebody on the Regional Advisory Committee that could mentor them, you know, make sure they get the materials they need, make sure they have all the necessary accommodations they need to participate, and even review the materials with them ahead of time to make sure they understand what's going to be discussed at the meeting. And even at the meetings, they could, you know, sit next to that individual and make sure that anything new that was brought up was understandable to them, and if not, explained to them. So that may be something, that's a suggestion I thought I would throw out there.
Thank you, Ms. Dwyer. We appreciate your suggestion.
You're
We're
welcome.
gonna move on to Ms. Corley.
And your council first, Kim and Jill.
Ms. Corley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it pleases you, Madam Chair and the council, I'd like for Ms. Hayno to be able to speak first, since she's a self-advocate, and then I'll speak after.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hayno, you have the floor.
Okay, I don't know if that's a very good idea, because Miss Corley made of me try just a wee bit, but to Ms. Dwyer's point, I know this is, well, I don't want to say uncharted territory, because we've been on Zoom for years, too, but when we were in person, every meeting
of our council, the self-advocates did have staff provided to exactly what Miss Kathy said. A staff member was sitting next to a self-advocate. And are you shaking your head, Miss Tarver? Barber, sorry. So, so in again, I'm always trying to figure out a happy median, but I mean, we're in uncharted waters, so there really isn't a staff person who can sit by you during a Zoom call, but I do think that there needs to be a way, which I don't know, I'm good at ideas, but not having to, how to follow through, but there needs to be a way on in this format that if a person needs that extra assistance, that it will be provided to them, because like I said before, Ms. Dwyer, what Ms. Dwyer was explaining was exactly what we did in person. So I don't, but then again, I don't know where to go from there, because not everyone is in person. So, all right, that's it. They're just my thoughts. Thank you. And thank you again, Miss Coralie, for yielding the floor to me. Very much appreciated.
All right, thank you, Ms. Taino. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Corley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and no problem at all, Ms. Hayno. Madam Chair and DD Council, first and foremost, I would like to thank y'all for having a council meeting today. But most importantly, I would like to thank Dr. McKee for actually doing the motion to allow Robert Rules of Order and Open Meeting Law to actually prevail in this matter, and to actually allow the public to actually have their comment. I greatly appreciate Ms. Jacobs and Ms. Dwyer's comments, especially Ms. Haynos, because I attended executive committee yesterday and it pained me to see a self-advocate really and truly be disgruntled and dismayed, and the only person that really understood it was Dr. McKee. The part of the federal DD Act says that we are to have individuals with disabilities employed with the DD Council, not just sitting on our DD Council, but employed as actual employees. We are under a federal decree because our DD Council does not have self-advocates or individuals with disabilities employed. They do not have people employed that have family members with any type of developmental disability. And that is creating the problem or the environment for why our self-advocates cannot be understood or receive the necessary accommodations and modifications. If I'm going to go back to the previous DD Council meeting, we had Mr. Logan, another self-advocate, that requested multiple times for the motions and for the agenda to be placed on the screen. I had to then ask for it because we did not have the Zoom format. We had abruptly went to YouTube, and YouTube did not, no public comments were ever read into record from YouTube. And I made a slew of them and had to abruptly come into the building to actually state what Mr. Logan was stating, because I myself could not see the agenda while driving, could not see anything, did not know where you was on the agenda, what was going on. It's a problem. And it's a problem because over and over again, I'm having to state that we're not doing things according to the DD Act. And by us not doing things to the DD Act, and we have a federal decree that is over our head, we are subjecting ourselves to losing actual monies that would actually allow this actual body to continue to exist. Part of what that federal decree stated was we were supposed to have diverse individuals, which was the reason for why we had a diversity, equity, inclusion ad hoc committee that still has not met after we went through the hoopla that the program manager gave us to actually be in full existence. That's a problem because we have more council members that are not here. Maybe it's because the diversity is lacking, because we're not making them feel inclusive. Maybe we have not addressed considering some of the cultural barriers that they may be having or facing. That is the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion ad hoc committee, because we're taking all of that into consideration. But in addition, that is the importance of the staff. The staff is supposed to exist because they are supposed to be knowledgeable about the DD Act. And right now, our staff is not knowledgeable. They do not represent the demographics of Louisiana, and they do not represent the demographics of the DD Act. And that is extremely problematic, and that is why we are facing the problems that we are currently facing. I do urge that our DD Council and the Executive Committee make that a priority, that we actually have staff that reflects what the DD Act says, such as diversity, equity, inclusion, but also that we make sure that we make our self-advocates and our individuals with disabilities and systems change a priority, because that is not the priority that we are seeing every single meeting. So Ms. Haino, I truly appreciated your comments on yesterday as well as today. Ms. Mary Jacobs, Ms. Kathy Dwyer, you were definitely on time. Dr. McKee, I can never express my gratitude for what you did yesterday and for the way that you continue to move as a council member. And Madam Vice Chair, I know you're new, and I am not fussing at you in no shape or form, because I respect you to the utmost. I just think that we fail to know that it is our actual employees' responsibility, and the failure of our employees' knowledge on the DD Act is what has gotten us to this point. So I hope that you take that strongly into consideration. And if you should need to have conversation with me at a later date or time away from the meeting, I am more than happy and able and willing to do that. Thank you so much for the ability to converse this morning.
Ms. Banks, I think you're muted on your end. Also, you do have.
I heard that her time limit was up 2 minutes ago, but I'm going to ask everyone that they can be conscious, because I will cut and say, hey, we're at our 3 minutes, because when we go over like that, everyone don't get the opportunity to be recognized and for their comments to be heard. So we have to keep it at the 3-minute limit. So I don't want to be, rude to anyone, but at that 3-minute, I am going to remind you, hey, we have other people that do want to be heard, because we have 4 more people that have to be heard right now. So I'm just wanting to tell everyone just to keep that in consideration. Ms. Basil, Bazil.
Okay, so the motion was made. We all agree something needs to be done. Let's do it. Let's stop talking about it. So when we're in person, let's have a staff member sit next to someone if that is what the person, a self-advocate, chooses. If they're on Zoom, let's have a staff person have a private chat box or a group meet or something with that self-advocate if they choose to help them out. Let's not keep rehashing this. Let's come up with solutions and do it now.
Thank you, Kim. Jill?
Ms. Kim's right, and Ms. Carly's right. Self-advocates should be a part of their state DD council in times. I mean, you guys and Ms. Dwyer and Ms. Mary Jacob, you guys are all right, and Jill Handel, because you know what? When I started in 2016, sorry to say this, but Sandy and Sean left me out. And when I had to go outside to the bathroom, I went and I'm like, I need some support. I was left alone, and I don't want to be left alone. All I want to do is represent the state for the DD Council and do its best.
All right. Ms. Kano, is she first?
Okay.
Ms. Kano?
Yeah, she is first.
Okay.
Again, to backtrack, because Ms. Corley did, I appreciate, and I know, how Ms. Corley noticed that, Dr. McKee and Mary Jacob reached out to me, but also, privately, Kim Basil reached out to me, so I wanted to thank her while everyone else was being acknowledged. I wanted to publicly acknowledge her as well. So, thank you.
All right, Ms. Vivian.
So, Miss Corley said staff were at fault, but isn't it the council members that need to be more inclusive, especially since it's mainly up to the chair and the council members since we facilitate the meeting? Can we learn to be more inclusive, please?
Yes, ma'am, we can. I definitely agree with what everyone is saying here. Definitely in agreement to you all, because I came on the council at 2020 and I felt the same way, and I'm not a self-advocate, I'm a parent advocate.
Wow.
So I get it. We're gonna work on that. That's why we're here today, to get that solution with what Kim said. I see Brandon Andrews, you have the floor.
Who?
Hey, thank you, Ms. Banks. I just wanted to let you know, there were some statements made about staff that are incorrect. We do have members of staff that have been personally impacted within their own families as far as developmental disabilities or disabilities go. So this has come up multiple times in the meeting, and I think it's inappropriate that we entertain such comments. It's up to staff to personally divulge that information if they so choose. And some prefer not to for various reasons. So I think you should probably have conversations directly with staff if you want to know their personal background and if they're willing to share. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it does come up multiple meetings, most meetings it comes up. And so just to stand up for the staff here, we want to make that comment. Also, you have 2 comments that have not been addressed in the comment box.
All right, Ms. Mary Lee, can you read those comments for us?
I can handle those comments for you. The first one is from Charles Michel, And he asked if this motion will be applicable to all future agendas or only this one. Those who have spoken are correct, and that these times to allow public opinion are required under open meetings laws in Louisiana. And then you have a statement from Ms. Kathy Dwyer. Says Ms. Corley is correct. There are people with visual impairments that need the agendas and other items read as the meeting proceeds. And I know Dr. McKee's hand was raised, but it went down, so I don't know if she still has a comment she would like to share.
Dr. McKee, do you have a comment? Are you?
Yeah, am I being recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So I think that a lot of this dialogue, and I appreciate all individuals that's involved, that's bringing up this as a concern, but I think this dialogue can also be discussed in the DEI committee meeting whenever they are reconvened or reestablished or, start back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKee. Any other public comments, questions? Oh, here.
Behind you.
Ms. Corley does have her hand raised as well, Ms. Banks.
We have somebody in person. She's gonna come around to see. So we're gonna give her the floor.
Point of order, do we allow people to make multiple public comments?
No, just two.
Two, is that the rule?
That's
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lillian Dejean. I'm a self-advocate from Group Start Louisiana. I think this conversation is going in the right direction. We know that the DD Council meeting materials are broadly inaccessible because of the business language that we have included. But I would caution the council against singling out self-advocates and people with disabilities as the people who don't understand. That sends a very negative message about the way that we view our people with disabilities on the council and off of the council. And the reality is that a lot of able-bodied people probably wouldn't understand the meeting materials either. So I just wanted to make that comment and caution you guys against singling out people with disabilities in that way. Thank you.
You are correct, and I apologize for doing that.
All right. Yes, we have one more, Ms. Ebony. Okay.
I mean, if I just can just say that it is Amy and I's intention to make sure that every self-advocate is supported at all of our council meetings. So like Jill said, this is uncharted territory, but we're in a hybrid situation right now. And prior to me becoming deputy director and prior to the pandemic, I was assigned a self-advocate when I was a program monitor to assist them during the meeting. So that part was going on. So I apologize if any self-advocate is feeling like they're not being supported. It is our intention that every self-advocate is supported in whatever way that they choose to be supported. So that's something that Amy and I can discuss with the staff to make sure moving forward that every person is supported, whether or not they're a self-advocate, like what Lillian just brought up. For any council that needs extra support or anything like that, we want to make sure that every person on our council is supported. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that that is the intention of the staff. And we want to make sure that you all feel comfortable coming to us if you need help with anything. My door is always open. You can call me anytime or email me. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we want to make sure that that is the purpose of this DD Council, for us to support the disability community. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page with the staff, that we're here to support you all. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. It really means a lot to me. I can't do this by myself sometimes.
All right. Do we have any more public comment?
Yes, I believe Ms. Kosei has something she would like to say, and Ms. Corley's hand is raised.
Okay, Ms. Corley, we'll recognize you.
Good morning, Brenda Kosei, council member, parent.
I just wanted to share that we had a plan in place during meetings where self-advocates was paired with staff. When I previously served, with this term, it's just been virtually. But previously when I served and we were in person, as Ms. Bazile suggested, we have had that plan in place. We also had, as a council, we had mentors paired with all new council members, self-advocates, parents alike. And I found that that helped as well. I was fortunate to mentor our former chairperson, April Dunn. And I was mentored by chairperson prior to becoming a vice chair. So my final thought with the 3 minutes is that as a council who is mandated by federal law, that as council member, all council members are going to be taking action to ensure that all fellow council members are fully participating. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. We appreciate that. Any more comments? I see something in the chat. Can you read that in the chat, Brenton?
I sure can. It was from Ms. Vivian Webb. I do think she addressed it in her comment, but it said, I'm not quite sure the issue is the staff, but us as council members, it's up to who runs the meetings, I think.
Okay. All right, if there's not any other thing, we're going to move on to the next item, and that is the executive recommendations.
Ms. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Corley's hand is raised. I don't know if you want to recognize her or not.
Well, she's already spoken twice, so if it's not any new information, I won't be able to. Okay, Amy, can you put the motions on the screen for our recommendations? Okay, these are the two that we had on the floor of an executive committee meeting. So the first motion is that Eric Taylor and Maria Castoretta be recommended for government appointment as self-advocate members for the DD Council, and that Brooke Stewart and Renanda Washington be recommended for a government appointment as parent advocates to the DD Council. Motion by Rashad Briscoe, second by Ms. Shani Guidry. Motion passed by unanimous approval. So we're going to open discussion. Yeah, and if you guys receive bios for Mr. Eric and Maria, just Eric and Brooke, and Ms. Renanda, we have 3 of their bios that they presented to us. So you guys have those and you're able to look over them. All right. Because this motion is coming from a committee, it doesn't require a second. Is there any discussion for council members upon these recommendations and the motion? Oh, Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Hi, thanks for being recognized. Are we still talking about the first motion or the second motion?
First motion.
Okay, I'll wait to the second. Thank you.
Okay. All right, if there's not any upon this one, we'll move on to the second motion. So this motion is that the members of the ad hoc committee conduct a full committee interview with the nonprofit applications for the purposes of deciding their candidate. Following their meeting, they will make the final decision. Full council give approval to the membership ad hoc committee to forward that recommendation for government appointment. This was motioned by Ms. Bambi Otezola and second by Rashad Briscoe and passed unanimously.
No, I don't hear.
Okay, Dr. McKee was first. Okay, Dr. McKee.
I thank you, Madam Chair, for being recognized. I failed to ask what the rationale was for the recommendation for the membership committee to do a full committee interview with the nonprofit applicant, as this has not been the practice in the past, nor has this practice took place for other seats on the council. So I was just wondering what the rationale was behind making such a recommendation so that I can understand. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and address that. So when we looked at all of the applicants that applied for the nonprofit position, all of the applicants scored extremely high and everybody was tied across the board. And in order for, and we broke it down into different teams in the interview process, right? And not everyone got to interview every single nonprofit. So that means that not everyone would have gotten the same rating from the nonprofits. So to put a full committee interview, that will give us a better insight of which one would be the better candidate to represent the DD Council. So that was the direction that we were going in. If that answers your question.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick response. The only concern that I have with it is it seems to be inconsistent practice. And so if this is something that the membership committee is wanting to institute in practice, that needs to be in writing, because what you're doing is you're saying that certain seats require full committee interview when other seats do not. If this is something that is going to be moving forward, I am very concerned that I apologize for bringing this up in front of the whole, I just really read it thoroughly just now. It just is inconsistent in practice. And I think that if this is something that the council wants to do, we need to make sure that this is either written somewhere, it's part of policy, and it's done across the board. And we need to have a better rationale than just scoring perfect on the rubric, because we've had that happen before with self-advocates, with parents, with relatives, people scoring perfect on the rubric. So I'm concerned that that's the only rationale that was used to subject a seat to be interviewed by the full committee.
Thank you, Dr. McKee. And just to answer that, that's what we were coming up with. We literally, but we haven't got to that point of it because that was up in my report, but we are coming up with a written policy so that moving forward, we don't run into these type of issues, because we're constantly running into these issues historically. We've had those issues where people would score that, right? So to move past that, we are coming up with something as a committee in writing that we're going to propose. So we have a certain policy procedure that we're going to go by in regards to interviewing and coming up with the applicants, and not just by the rubric. It's going to be, we're really going to write it out and have it proposed where they know exactly what they have to do, what's expected, what's required, and how to conduct the interview also. So we are coming up with that, but that was just up in my report. We haven't got to it yet. So if that addresses your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It does not, but thank you again. And I know that you guys are working hard to, push through the membership process, but thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Dr. McKee. Bambi, you have the floor.
I just want to say I was on the membership committee, and the issue was we were at a stalemate. If we would have made any type of vote, it would have been random drawing from the hat. There was nothing that differentiated anyone. There was no one who could share with their interview that made each and any individual be the person that everyone could say that that's who they selected. We have some really great candidates, which is great. And so that was the solution at the meeting that was entertained because of that. So if there's a better solution going forward, that's fine. But that was the stalemate that we were at.
Dr. Wilson?
I just want to point out if there is a written rule promulgated or whatever, I'm fine with that, and I understand the concern. I just want to point out that the DD Act requires representation on all of the 3 sister agencies of somebody from the other agencies. So for example, we have a representative from the DRLA, Jeff Rowe, and actually a second person whose name now escapes me, but because she hasn't participated for a little bit. And I don't believe we have a formal representative from the DD Council on the Human Development Center's Advisory Council. Would really appreciate having one. And preferably it would be Amy, because she is the person who runs this agency, but it doesn't have to be. It should be that agency's designee may serve. And that is, in the DD Act. So if you make a policy, and let's say one day when I retire and there's somebody new as director of the Human Development Center, maybe that director would be, the designated representative, or maybe that person would find somebody to represent the center rather than herself or himself. I don't think the council can supersede that. And it's important because we're running our own agencies. Sometimes that person couldn't be for whatever internal reasons, wouldn't have the time or expertise or whatever. So just please, if there's a written policy, take that into consideration, or we're going to be back, kind of rehashing that later.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Tolliver. Wait, which one was first? Ms. Tolliver.
Good morning, thank you. I just wanted to say that
she's still working.
When I was hearing that Dr. McKee was talking about, and then of course hearing some comments that y'all had made about that that you had an equal number, that the people that have been considered all had the same qualifications. I mean, that's unavoidable. We try to have the best people in order to have great representation on our DD Council. And so even if you have the full committee interview the person, you may only have 10 people that can be in the interview. So you will still not have the full committee votes if that's what you're looking for, to try and not have a tie vote. But I think that there's some rules, because even when we had our election of our officers in the past and we've had tie votes, there are ways to remedy that through doing the rules we already have set up. So if it's a tie, then we can figure those things out. And I don't think that segregating the one type of person for an applicant for the nonprofit makes sense, because the next time it could be for a parent, or it could be for a self-advocate, or it could be for whoever. So I think that we would be going down a slippery slope. So I'm looking forward to hearing the report about kind of, I guess, what y'all are planning for the future. But I don't know that this motion might not be, or this solution might not be the very best moving forward to set up precedents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Talbot. I have Ms. Hano with her hand raised. You have the floor.
Okay, after hearing y'all speak, I remember we weren't doing non-profit per se, but I remember being on a membership committee, and Bambi, you might have been with me, but we did do, for whatever reason, maybe we were at hit a block, but we did do a full membership committee interview, and I did like it. And also, but to Dr. McKee and Ms. Tarver's point, if we, whatever we do has got to be across the board. And I said it once, I'm probably saying it twice, and I'll say it again, but we some like protocols for our membership committee that will stick, because if I'm correct, which I'm not really sure how it is going to be, but every time an opening comes up, new membership committee is assembled, but now my committee list says that the 2022 membership committee is made up of this, and this. Like, I don't know if that's gonna be how, like, cause it's not supposed to be a standing committee. So I just think that we cannot do one membership committee one way and then the next another way. So, and I did personally like when we all gave the interviews. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jill. We're going to go back to this first motion, and we're going to go ahead and vote upon this, since they didn't have any public comment and any comments in the chat. We have 5 up there now.
Thanks. You do have comments in the chat.
I'm sorry, Brenton. I just saw they had 5. Can you
Okay.
read those if you don't mind?
Sure. So we do have one comment from Ms. Karonda Corley, and I think she was referencing earlier saying that she only spoke once, not twice. And Ms. Mary Jacob has a comment. Can someone read the nonprofit requirement to make sure you're choosing an appropriate nonprofit and not a person? So the nonprofit agency should be picked, and then the agency chose their representative. That was her second question.
Okay.
And Ms. Heimel's hand is raised.
Yeah. You're not picking a nonprofit, you're picking a person that is a part, is representing a nonprofit. But you're not picking one. Yeah.
Point of order,
So,
can y'all say that out loud? Because I think misinformation was just given in the chat. Because it is not the nonprofit that we're selecting.
Right.
Right,
Right.
okay.
You're not selecting a nonprofit, you're selecting a person. That person is affiliated with and represents a nonprofit.
Okay.
Or a local non-governmental agency. But you're not selecting one organization and they just name a person. You're selecting a person.
Thank you, Amy, for clarifying that. Ms. Roslyn?
Yeah, with the motion that they have on the screen, I've been reading them and that. So with one on top, with it, is this going into play, like a play role for this year and the years to come? And that with with the self-advocacy members of the DD Council and with Brooke still within it, with is that Washington?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that going to the governor as well of the state of Louisiana?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
So is he going to sign off on that one or what on that one? That one is one, and the other one is with membership on the second one. That's my second question. With DAD, with
Well, Ms. Roslyn, we're gonna wait for that second one, but for the first one, these are the recommendations that we are bringing to the governor for appointment. And if approved today, when voted upon, then we'll bring this and they'll be approved to be upon the council. So that's what we're about to vote on right now. That motion, just the first one, in regards to.
So
how Rhonda Washington and Eric Taylor and Maria Corset being appointed.
So can you really tell me what's this one, about before we tend to vote on it? Because I am a little lost in that.
On which one? On all of them? On Eric Taylor, Maria, Brooke, and Renanda?
That's the one.
Okay, so did you get the bios from all of the people?
All right, what color sheet is that on?
I think that was
emailed yesterday.
It was emailed yesterday, Rosalind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you probably didn't get a chance to look at it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, not unless you
So you want me to give you like a
So
summary of them?
the first motion, Rosalind, is if everyone agrees on the council, then those 4 names will be forwarded to the governor. And then he hopefully will appoint them, but he can still make the decision not to. That's what that motion is about.
Well, you have like 6 names on here.
Counting Rashad Cheney.
The
and
4
2 of them it's like they have a line underneath two of them. That's what's making me ask the question, can you kind of fill me in on it? Because I'm seeing little squiggle lines underneath two.
Those red lines are just because when I typed it in the Word document, Word doesn't recognize those names. So it's saying that they're misspelled, but they're not.
Oh, okay, that's why I'm asking, to kind of refreshing my memory because, I'm a little lost in it. I would appreciate that.
Are you going to elaborate or do?
I don't know.
We're going to have one of our staff members get with you, Rosalind.
Okay, that would work out too with me because, I would appreciate it neither way.
Okay. All right, so right now, we are about to vote upon the first motion recommending Eric Taylor and Maria Castorilla for self-advocate members for the DD Council and Brooke Stewart and Renanda Washington for parent advocate for the DD Council. We're going to do a roll call vote, Amy. Okay. So please respond with A if you are in favor of the motion, or no if you are opposed to the motion.
Dr. Paravecchio?
Or abstain if you are not voting.
Okay.
Can you repeat that again? How you vote again?
Yes, ma'am. Please respond to A if you are in favor of the motion, or no if you are opposed to the motion, or abstain if you are not voting.
Can I ask a question before we vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Why are we voting? If we don't have to do roll call vote unless there's an objection to the motion, right?
No, it says we have a roll call vote upon here.
But why? That's not, what reason? If everyone's in favor, because if everyone's in favor, if there's an objection, then you have to do roll call.
Because it's coming from a committee. Right. I mean, that's true, but if you choose to do a roll call, then you do.
Okay. It says a roll call vote. So, but if we don't, if no one sustains from this and no one objects from the first motion, we don't have to do that.
Abstain wouldn't.
I'm sorry, not abstain. No, that's what I'm sorry, Dr. Oh, I'm sorry, Vivian. You have the floor.
Which motion are we voting on right now, or are we voting on both of them at the same time?
No, we're voting on the first motion, motion one. Ms. Amy has highlighted it for us.
All right, thank you.
So ask for any objection.
Do we have any objections to the motion? Okay. Any extensions? All right. It passes. The motion passes. Now we're going to move on to the second motion. Sure.
Ms. Banks, you do have a comment in the chat that is related to this second motion.
Okay, can you read those for me, please?
Sure. Ms. Mary Jacob said the act says representatives at all times of local non-governmental agencies and private nonprofit groups concerned with services for individuals with DD in the state. At the membership meeting, I didn't hear much conversation around the actual nonprofit organization to ensure their mission was in fact concern for people with DD. And she also says, is there assurance from the nonprofit organization that they want to be the nonprofit on the DDC? Any conversation with the nonprofit organization leadership? Any resolution required?
I make sure when people apply and they are affiliated with a nonprofit, that I research that nonprofit to make sure that it is an actual nonprofit that provides services for people with developmental disabilities. I do not contact the actual nonprofits to make sure that they're giving their permission. That's for the applicant to work out with their nonprofit.
Okay, Ms. Jill, you have the floor.
Miss Amy, you said you can, so sometimes you cannot connect with nonprofits on behalf of IDD services, but that's a HIPAA thing, huh? No one's allowed to legally do that, correct? Like knowing, accessing a client that gets services from the state, nobody could connect, because that's a HIPAA violation.
Well, what we're talking about right now are people who work at nonprofits. So
they'll be like
that wouldn't be right, like an ARC.
ARC of Greater New Orleans, or like ARC of Baton Rouge.
Or like in Fields, or there are a lot of nonprofits in the state that have something that provides some sort of a service for, or resources for people with development.
If a provider was asking a staff, I said an ARC, based on their title, and the provider wanted to know about the client's intake or provision plan of services, are they legally allowed to do that?
Can you repeat the question?
If a provider was, like, say there was a consumer or client that went to like a DAHAB state facility and they wanted a meeting, or they wanted to know about a certain individual, can somebody release certain information? Or with services, or they can't? That's against the law?
With services, no. They would have to sign releases to allow for that kind of information to be shared.
Release. Because Ms. Julie, you get that a lot too, huh? They couldn't call your office to say, well, what services is so-and-so receiving?
That's absolutely correct. That's protected health information.
So that's a HIPAA.
We cannot share that.
And they couldn't call LRS to say where is somebody working?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, is that the only other public comment? Do we have any other comments up in the chat?
There is another comment, but it is not related to this particular motion. So I can read that after you handle this motion, if you prefer.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we have the motion that's up on board that's highlighted that we are about to vote upon. Do I have any abstentions? Oh, I'm sorry, I can see it. I'm sorry, Dr. McKee?
I object to this motion.
All right, we have an objection.
Ms. Webb also has her hand
Now
raised.
we have I'm sorry. Ms. Webb?
I object to this motion.
All right, we're just gonna go ahead and do a roll call vote. Amy?
Okay.
Do you want to explain what a yes and a no?
I would like to know more.
Sure. So if you vote yes, you are voting that the membership ad hoc committee can conduct another round of interviews with the nonprofit applicants.
Okay.
For the purpose of deciding who their candidate is that they will forward to the governor for appointment.
I got you.
And This motion also gives the membership ad hoc committee permission to move forward with making that recommendation to the governor instead of coming back to the full council to vote again. Janie has her hand raised.
I'm sorry, if this motion gets rejected, what happens next with the 4 people in question?
I guess the alternative would be we can send all of the names of the nonprofit applicants to the governor's office and he picks.
Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Thanks for being recognized. That's not the only alternative. Another alternative could be that the membership committee reconvenes itself and select and then come before the council with their recommendations and then seek approval from the council with their recommendations that they agreed upon in the membership committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKee. All right, so if you are in favor of the motion, you'll say A. Yay, I'm sorry, yay. And if you are not in favor of the motion, say no. And if you are not voting, you'll say abstain.
Dr. Baravecchio?
Yes.
Ms. Bazile?
Yes.
Ms. Bayham?
Yes.
Ms. Kosei? Ms. Crane?
Ms. Kosei, no.
Okay, Ms. Crane?
Yes.
Ms. Eagley?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Kidry?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan?
Yes.
Ms. Hayno?
Abstain.
Ms. Harmon?
No.
Ms. Hemel?
Did you call me?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Mr. Iddens? Not present. Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Dr. McKee?
No.
Ms. Polizzola?
Yes.
Ms. Richard? Mr. Rocca?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera? Ms. Tarver?
No.
Ms. Webb?
No.
Ms. White? Dr. Wilson?
Yes.
Thirteen yeses, 5 nos, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
All right, thank you, Amy. So our motion passes. All right, our next item of business is the executive director report, and the chair recognizes Ms. Amy DeVille for her report.
Thank you, Chair. My report, I will pull it up on the screen just so you can see it. It is available online. Review. I will mention a few things that, let me get a little bigger. There are a few things that I mentioned that are not on the report. One of those is at the last council meeting, the council approved the fiscal year 23 annual work plan. Following that meeting, the work plan was put out for 45-day public comment period. No comments were received. So the fiscal year 23 annual work plan will proceed as approved in the last council meeting. Yellow shirt days were a very big part of, and legislative advocacy was a very big part of the last 3 months. And the 5-year strategic plan for LDH was also due within this quarter. Currently also working on state plan amendments for the administration on community living. So those are our federal state plan amendment. That is due in mid-August. We are also about to embark on the fiscal year 24 budget planning process already for the state. And one last thing that I wanted to mention was that our program monitor, Marilee Andrews, this is her last week with us. And so I wanted to make sure that I recognized her and said thank you for her 3 years of service to the council. And anyone who's here who sees her, I want to give her a good luck on her next venture. And that's it for my executive director's report, unless there's any questions.
Well, and I really want to wish her a good luck on that because for me, this was a very good journey that I was on as well. And I enjoy it.
All right, is there any questions or comments from the council members? Is there any public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right, what about the chat?
In the chat, we have one comment from Katie Crows that says, Marilee, best of luck to you.
All right. All right, well, it's about time for us to take our 10-minute break. So we're gonna reconvene at 10:10.
We have no.
I know, I got it.
What time are we coming back for?
For 10:10?
What do I think I am?
I know, I was.
With any chance.
All right, it is now 10:10. The meeting has been called back to order. Our next item of business is our budget report. Chair recognizes Ms. Fiscal for the report.
All right, everyone, on the screen. It shows everything.
I can't see that.
So this report, the last one for this, but I will say we are still receiving some invoices and last minute things towards next year. So the bottom lines will change a little bit. We'll go down a little lower as we pay out some. But all in all, we did very well throughout the year. We had budget balances, salaries.
They can't hear.
Oh, sorry, guys. We had some balances in salaries. And that's because we had some open positions this year. Travel, of course, we had unspent money. That's because there was no travel for the majority of this year. And then in
May I ask if what paper is this one on, please?
What paper?
So Rosalind, I don't think that the budget report was complete before your packet was sent, but we can send you the link. It's on the website, so we can send you the link so you'll have it, okay?
Can you please? I will appreciate that.
Well, I'll do it right now.
Thank you.
Amy, before you start, I think some people are having trouble hearing, so maybe if you could speak up. Also, just a reminder to everyone that is in person, the mics that are on the table are highly sensitive, so a lot of your side chatter people can hear. So if you do have to have any sidebar conversations with someone next to you, please kind of back up from the table a little bit and be mindful when you're shuffling your papers or moving your drinks or things around, that can be picked up on the mic and it might disrupt what folks on Zoom can hear. Thank you.
And also I'm wearing hearing aids and that's really hard for me to hear.
Okay. All right, so the last thing that I was going to mention was the contracts line, which is almost the last line. We currently have about $290,000 in there. That was at the time of this, that this report was done. But like I said, we still have some invoices that are being paid out. So that line is going to go down a little bit. Money left over from contracts. Again, had a lot to do with not being able to travel for a large part of this contractual year. So, and that concludes my budget report, unless anyone has any questions.
Bambi, you're recognized.
In regards to what you said at the beginning about positions being filled, I know there was, with Courtney Rodden was in a position, and what is the update on filling that position?
It has not been filled. So it currently, well, at the end of this week, we'll have 2 open positions again that I'm working to fill. A program monitor and a program manager position.
Okay, so they'll be posted, is that, okay.
Yes.
Ms. Banks, we do have a comment in the chat.
Can you read that for me, please?
Ms. Karana Corley asked if the executive director could start her report again from the beginning because they are now able to hear.
Sure, it was brief. So I just drew attention to the fact that we had some money left over in salaries. That was due to open positions throughout the year. Travel, that was because we really were not able to travel throughout the majority of this fiscal year. And we didn't have in-person council meetings. So there's some money left over there. And then the other thing that I drew attention to was the contractual line, the contracts, total contracts down here. And there is some money that is still in there. That line item will go down a little bit. We're still receiving some invoices that are for federal year 22, I'm sorry, state fiscal year 22. And so that line will go down a little bit. There were some contracts that were not able to spend all of their money. That was due to not being able to travel and have in-person events.
Ms. Hano, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is this a year-end budget report or is that something different? Yes, okay.
Well, this is the, this budget report should be the year-end report.
Okay.
We still have a few things that, a few payments that are still hitting some of last state fiscal year budget. But there won't be any great change from the numbers that are on this budget report.
Okay, but this is the fourth quarter budget report, correct?
Right, yes, that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Woodley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Going back to what Bambi asked, when was Courtney's position posted and how many interviews have there been?
The program manager position was, well, I don't know if it was posted before I came. I don't know if it ever got posted. I did not post it, in part because I had a lot of other things that I had to fill, and then we had like moving the deputy director over, then I had a program monitor position and I needed to get that one filled first. A contracts grants reviewer position come open and I had to get that one filled. So most of the job tasks from the program manager position have been split in between Ebony and I, since Ebony started in the deputy director position. So it was mainly just about, that wasn't the highest priority. A lot of it was federal reporting. And she and I have been doing all of that. I really need to get somebody in and teach them how to do that. But it just, timing wise, I just have not had the time to devote to getting somebody in to that position, as I've had other positions that I needed filled first.
So when will it be posted?
I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks. I'd like to get the program monitor and the program manager position posted very soon.
Is it a difficult task to get a position posted?
Depending on when the last time it was posted, you sometimes have to revise all of the job task lists and all of the, she's nodding because she knows what I'm talking about. You sometimes have to revise everything that went along with that before you can post it. And then it has to stay out for however long on the civil service website. And then we just haven't had, the last few things that I have posted for, we have not had many applicants. And I have been told that that is a big change from the way that things used to be. And rarely am I finding people who have any skills in whatever the area is that I'm looking for. So it's a rough hiring climate right now.
I agree.
Can I ask a question, Amy? Is there going to be a emphasis on finding someone that has expertise in education? I know we have a major hole right now in the expertise in the council, and that is something that I hear from, while there's a lot of issues going on, but education is something that I think the council we need more expertise. So is that something that you're looking for, that type of expertise?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So do you think by the next council meeting, the position will be posted and some interviews will have been made?
I think so, yeah. That's certainly my goal. Yeah.
All right. Oh, Jill, you're recognized.
Now this computer. So did you say you filled Haley's position for contract?
She asked if you filled Haley's position.
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Brenton, can you please read any public chats in the chat box?
Yes, there was one comment from Karonda Corley. She asked, DDC has 3 positions open. Well, where will the positions be posted? And Ms. Jenkins on staff responded to that question that we have 2 positions open and it will be posted at governmentjobs.com on the civil service website.
All right, thank you for that. This report requires no action and will be placed on file. All right, the next item of business is our committee report. And our first report is from Act 378 Subcommittee, and the chair recognizes Ms. Mamie Otazola for the committee report. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Good morning. The Act 378 Subcommittee met yesterday. We do not have any recommendations for the council to consider. We did spend time reviewing fiscal year 22 fourth quarter data from the programs within the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities and Behavioral Health, as well as Aging and Adult Services through the ARC of Louisiana. These reports can be found linked in our committee agenda on the council meetings webpage if you would like to review. The subcommittee did express some concerns from some of the local government entities, or LGEs as they're known, that had not expended all of their funds. However, it was noted that this was not the final report and all invoices for services have not been processed at the time the reports were created. We should have a better picture of the actual expenditures in October when we receive the year-end reports. While discussing the OBH Flexible Family Fund Program, members expressed concerns for North Louisiana Human Service District program in particular. It was noted that they have a wait list for the program, even though there were enough slots available for those on the wait list. The committee questioned what efforts that particular LGE has made to ensure the timely filling of slots and what outreaches are being conducted to ensure enough eligible applicants are located to fill all budgeted slots. OBH mentioned a corrective action plan for this LGE will be needed since they did not have at least 90% of their budgeted slots filled and will request the specific concerns will request the specific concerns of the subcommittee to be addressed in that plan. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mandy. Are there any questions from the council members on the report? Any public comment?
There is one question from Ms. Karonda Corley that is in relation to the topic we were talking about previously, which is staffing. So I'm not sure if you want to address that now or not.
We can table that when we get to the public comment. Thank you. All right, now the next item of business is the report for Self-Determination Community Inclusion Committee. The chair recognizes Chairperson in Brazil of the committee report.
Thank you. So we met yesterday and we have no recommendations to present to council. We did receive a lot of great updates from Julie Foster Hagan with the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, or OCDD, and Medicaid. A lot of the information shared is included in their agency reports, and I'm sure we'll touch on these topics later today. I encourage you to review those reports. We received a legislative update regarding specific bills and resolutions passed that would impact people with disabilities. Most of the legislation discussed can be found on the council's bill tracking list, which is linked on the meeting's webpage. We also found out that the public health emergency has been extended through mid-October, which means Appendix K exceptions for the home and community-based Medicaid waivers will remain in effect until April 2023. The timeline may change depending on if the federal government renews the emergency order. OCDD also plans to reconvene the Appendix K exceptions focus groups to further discuss family members serving as paid caregivers and virtual visits. We were also told the deadline to use the additional American Rescue Plan home and community-based funds was extended a year to March 2025. We received an update on the implementation of Act 421 Children's Medicaid Option, or TEFRA. As of July 15th, we received 940 applications. 350 of those have been approved. 491 are being reviewed. 85 have been denied, and 14 were withdrawn. A concern was brought up that individuals are being told that they must apply for TEFRA before a waiver to see if their needs can be met via the TEFRA program. TEFRA may not be right for some families, and this is just another delay in getting them waiver services they may desperately need. Julie mentioned the department was recently made aware of this issue, and they are working with the districts and authorities on processes and trainings to ensure unnecessary delays are not happening. She will do some more work on this and bring it back before the committee at our October meeting. Finally, we discussed some of the contractual activities in goals 1 and 2 of the council's fiscal year 2022 action plan. I encourage all of you to review the status update document that we receive quarterly for specific updates on each activity and any of the documents linked in our committee agenda. Thank you.
All right, is there any, thank you, Ms. Kim, for your report. Is there any questions from the council members? All right, any public comment? Brenton, do we have any in the chat box?
I do not see any hands raised or any comments in the chat at this time.
All right. All right, now we're gonna move along to the next business upon the agenda item is the Education and Employment Committee. And Chair recognizes Dr. Hyson McKee for the report.
Good morning. The Education and Employment Committee met yesterday and has one recommendation to present to the council. The two education issues that were on the council's 2022 advocacy agenda both passed this legislative session. Senate Bill 192 by Senator Boudreaux passed, and it was signed by the governor on July 5th. Approximately $1 million has been included in the FY23 budget for the Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Fund to fund programs for students with intellectual developmental disabilities at Louisiana post-secondary institutions. Additionally, Senate Bill 45 by Senator Foyle also passed that makes changes to the current Act 456 of 2021 and was signed by the governor on July 5th. Approximately $8 million has been included in the FY23 budget to fund cameras in special education classrooms, and policies must be adopted within 60 days of receipt of the funding. These policies also have to be submitted to LDOE, Louisiana Department of Education, by January 15th and must include provisions on how a parent or legal guardian may request cameras. We received a lot of updates from the Louisiana Department of Education, including an update on cameras in the classroom. The department is creating a Board of Elementary and Secondary Education BESI policy to be presented during the August BESI meeting in order to get funds out to the districts as expeditiously as possible. The department is also determining how to equitably allocate the funding to each district while ensuring that procedures are in place to adequately document that the funding was spent on cameras and their installation. It is important to note that the department currently cannot offer district guidance on what content should be included in their policies and will not have any oversight by reviewing the policies and providing feedback. Each district is only required to submit their policies to the department at this time. We also discussed the Louisiana Department of Education summer initiatives, including the Early Childhood Conference that will be held July 22nd through the 24th in New Orleans, where the department will be presenting early childhood inclusion, Make Magic Happen. They also released new resources for the April Dunn Act and the Teacher Leader Summit. The April Dunn Act Self-Assessment Guide and the April Dunn Act Parent Guide to Understanding the Law, which was also shared with Families Help and Family Centers to distribute the resources to families. The department will also be offering free reading modules for educators, specifically targeting special educators, interventionists, and reading specialists to help students in grade 4 through 8 who are struggling to read. The department's IDEA grant application was approved and they received over $24 million in funding to support initiatives, which was an increase from last year's funding. We also were present other legislation that was passed during the session, including SCR 31, Related Service Commission, SB 98, Louisiana Commissions for the Deaf, SB 176, Blind Persons Literacy Rights and Education Act. Lastly, the K2 Alternate Assessment Participation Decision-Making Tool was also discussed by the committee and will identify student eligibility to participate in alternate assessments to LEAP. This tool will be shared with the committee for feedback before the August BESI meeting. We also received an update from the Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, including information regarding the Disability Innovation Fund grant and that funds the Project STEMA initiative, which improves outcomes in STEM occupations for individuals in marginalized populations. The project participants will be developing a recruitment plan to recruit correct individuals for this project so that more individuals with disabilities will have opportunities to obtain employment in the areas of STEM. And I'm sure that Ms. Bayham will mention more in her report. LRS is also working on a major project for rate setting, and they are working with Rehabilitation Services Administration to get the rates updated and approved by the federal government. They are also still working with LSU, HSC, and the University of South Florida on customized employment, and they will be recruiting vendors and learning partners this fall to begin the next phase of training. The committee discussed in great detail the number of vacancies for vocational rehab counselors within LRS and the low pay within civil service. The committee felt that it was necessary to bring issues to the civil service's attention, and therefore the motion in front of us states as follows. The motion is the Education and Employment Committee recommends the Developmental Disabilities Council write a letter to civil service expressing concerns regarding the starting pay and range for the Louisiana Rehabilitation Services staff and disability determination staff with the Department of Children and Family Services and request an increase in the starting pay and range. That is the motion that is brought before the council today for consideration from the Education and Employment Committee.
All right, thank you, Dr. McKee. Are there any questions from the council members on the report?
Ms. Heimel has her hand raised and Ms. Johano has her hand raised as well.
Okay, Ms. Heimel, you have the floor, and this is regards to the motion that we have on floor, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, for what I am hearing from you, McKee, is there like a listing for the people to get jobs? Or is there something like different, something totally different than considering job related?
Great question, Rosalind. Are you speaking towards the comment that I made about Louisiana Rehab Services, LRS, and their counselors?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. The discussion was a huge concern of having challenges with filling the vacancies for the positions of counselors in LRS, Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, as well as other positions, particularly the Disabilities Determination Specialist position in the Department of Children and Family Services. So the biggest concern was we are having some huge challenges with filling these vacancies because folks are not getting paid enough. The rate is just not where, it's where people are excited about applying to get compensated. So, and so the committee's recommendation was to write this letter to civil service to say, hey, folks are not getting paid enough. We need to do something about this rate. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, and two, I wanted to know, since you mentioned a pay rate, is that pay rate dropping?
Oh, okay, that's an awesome question. I'm sure that Ms. Bayham may be able to speak a little bit more about this in her report, but the word dropping may kind of be aligned with, it may not be where it's appetizing enough for someone to even want to apply, right? Like, so it's at a rate where people are not even interested or not even trying to apply.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and so so the rate, you're asking for the exact rate. So I don't have that information in front of me for that particular position, but I'm sure there's a way that we can access that. Sometimes that's on our civil service website, but maybe we can work to see if we can get that information to you.
Also, can you kind of, send me the, the paper up on that and, give me, what, I could read off on.
Yeah, I think that'll be a simple fix. So we'll work to get that information to you. So I believe your question is, what's the rate? What's the starting rate? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. I think we can get that. That's something that's very doable.
Yeah, because I want to see it in print where I can really read it for myself.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Ms. Email. That concludes my report. We still have a motion on the floor.
All right. Oh, she had her hand raised. Jill, did you have your hand raised?
Okay, I know I have a question about your report, but it's not about the motion. So do you want me to wait?
Yes, ma'am, if you don't mind. Can you table it and just wait for it after we finish the motion?
Of course.
Thank you, ma'am. I sure appreciate it. Do you have any public comment?
There are no hands raised and nothing in the chat at this time.
All right. Are there any objections to the motion that's displayed upon the board? All right, since there is no objection, then the motion passes. All right, the next item of business is the membership committee.
No, Ms. Haynell had a comment. She had a question for the Education Employment Committee. That's okay. I didn't want to interject, but she had a question for us.
Okay, go ahead, Jill.
I feel like I have done turn. Don't write that. I feel like I have not turned my key Angel looking out for me this quarter. But way at the top of your report, Dr. McKee, you mentioned 2 bills that I tried to write down, and I have Senate Bill 192, and then I have another Senate bill, and I didn't get that number.
Yeah, so that first one was Senate Bill 192, which is now Act 682.
Okay.
And the second one is Senate Bill 45, which is now Act 456.
Act 456. Okay, never mind. I know now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jill. All right, the report requires no more action and will be placed on file. All right, the next item of business is the report of the membership committee, and I'm the chair of that. We have already discussed and have brought to the council our recommendations in regards to what we came up with up in our meeting with the 2 recommendations for governor appointment for self-advocate and 2 recommendations for parent advocate for government appointment. And we also had a motion that passed for the 4 nonprofit applications for us to reconvene as a committee and re-interview these to suggest the best candidate for the DD Council. And that concludes our report. Are there any questions from council members? From the public? Me in the chat box?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
All right, report requires no action and will be placed on file. Now, our next order of business is the report of the Bureau of Health Services Finances, Medicaid, and the chair recognizes Ms. Tara Blanc for the report.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Our report for Medicaid is the blue in your packet. I just want to highlight a few things real quickly and then add a few things. The LDH business plan for fiscal year 22, we're wrapping that up. We hope to have the final results public. The focus was on improving the health and well-being of Louisianians with the emphasis on prevention, reshaping the LDH culture, enhancing our customer service, our partnerships and community relations, promote transparency, accountability, and compliance. So that's our first item. The second item was the Act 421, which is TEFRA, which our progress has already been stated, so I'll skip over that. Dental coverage, Act 450 of the 2021 legislative session requires LDH to cover comprehensive dental for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities enrolled in a Medicaid waiver. This coverage requires CMS approval, and we submitted the waiver December of 2021, and the effective date to start these services was July 1st of 2022. And you can receive the coverage through our 2 managed care dental plans, MCNA and DentaQuest. We also increase dental hospital anesthesia for that dental services conducted in a hospital. We try to entice hospitals to allow dental procedures by increasing the anesthesia rate. And that was retro back to July 1st of 2021. We also have the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which has already been spoke about the rates. So I'm going to skip over that. Permanent supportive housing, the department in conjunction with our sister agencies, OAS and OCDD and Office of Behavioral Health, continue to assist participants in transitioning to stable housing. We currently have 4,758 individuals being served and 2,854 households. Money follows the person. Last year, we transitioned 286 individuals from nursing facilities into the community. And some of those individuals actually are able to get permanent supportive housing vouchers for stable environments. Self-direction, we currently have 1,984 individuals participating in self-direction as of May 31st. You guys know what self-direction, EVV, LDH and its contractor, SRI, continue to train and work with providers. I want to note that in the LDH business plan of 2023, that there will be something around EVV, and it's just compliance for our providers. So we're trying to make sure that we get the providers in more of a compliance, so which will assist. And skipping over. Okay, that is the last off the report that I'd like to read out. I'd like to add 2 items just for general discussion. One is the PHE, the public health emergency related to COVID for the federal government. We all know that it has been extended to October. We are hearing at a federal level, it will probably be re-extended. The date that we will know if it will actually end October 23rd is August 14th, around that time frame. The federal government, specifically President Biden's administration, has promised states that we would receive a 60-day notice of the end of the PHE. So that 60-day notice prior to the October date is around the August 14th. So we should know sooner than later that if it's going to be extended. So that's our kind of D date for right now. But again, at a federal level, we are hearing the anticipation that it's going to be extended again. So what does that mean, and what is, go ahead.
I'm curious what that means. I mean, Medicaid, how is that run? How's that run legally in Louisiana in the country? Like, is that a challenge or is it calm? Because I just wonder myself.
So this is not really related to the COVID cases, but in Louisiana, we are seeing a spike. But in Medicaid, what the public health emergency has required Medicaid eligibility rules change. So basically, if anyone that was enrolled after March of 2020, when COVID first started, we cannot disenroll any Medicaid member unless they've deceased, moved out of state, or they voluntarily request. Even if someone mails me a letter and says, I have a new job and I make $100,000.
Oh my God.
I still cannot disenroll them off of Medicaid unless they request it.
What about the special need who get Medicaid, but that don't get a lot from the government? I mean, that's a problem in this state.
Yeah, and they're still on Medicaid. They'll still be enrolled in Medicaid through this time.
They turned me down Medicaid when Dell used to be the governor, and everything was neglected. So then I had to transfer to Medicare Humana.
Yeah, that is true. So besides that information about the public health emergency, what I want to bring up is one of the concerns that I have been having that keeps me up late at night is that we know that for eligibility, we actually interact with our members mainly through mailing of letters. We have elected as a state, because we can't disenroll anyone and to be good fiduciary members of the money, We are not mailing letters. We're not running people through, mailing the renewal packets if you have to do a renewal, just because we can't act upon that information. And as we see today, it may be 3 years before the public health emergency ends. So whatever information we get is inaccurate anyway by the time the public health emergency will end. Our fear is that we know a lot of our vulnerable individuals on Medicaid, their housing is unstable, so that they have moved quite a bit around. So we don't have contact information for our members. So when the public health emergency does end and we start mailing those letters, because CMS is requiring us to review every person over a 12-month period, that they'll end up losing coverage because they're not receiving the letter. So we've been doing a big push. I know some of you have received the Pink Letter campaign, and basically what the Pink Letter campaign was in May. We mailed every Medicaid household a pink letter. And I want to explain the pink letter. It is white paper printed pink. There is a supply chain issue with any colored paper and envelopes. Wow. So just let everybody know that. So it's not that neon pink like here. My report. Yeah, it's not that neon pink because we could not get, actually I needed almost 2 million envelopes and I don't know, 4 million pieces of paper, and we could not get that. So it is actually a white sheet of paper printed pink on there. So just let everybody know that. But if you have any relationship with a managed care organization with Medicaid, the managed care companies mailed it out with their logo and their call center, and Medicaid mailed out the ones that were not affiliated with managed care. And the letter was very benign. All it said was basically, hey, this is Medicaid. We're trying to make sure we have your correct contact information. And the public message now is if you didn't receive a pink letter, we know the mail service is having problems, but I don't want to throw them under the bus. So we're just going to assume that Medicaid doesn't have the correct contact if you haven't received that, even though there's probably some mail or people have thrown it away. So our message is if you know anyone that receives Medicaid, please make sure their information is up to date in the Medicaid system. They can either call their MCO if they do have a relationship, call the Medicaid number, email them up on self-service portal, or fax it in. Either way, just as long as we get that update. And it's not just this one time. We just discussed that we're thinking maybe it's January before the PHE may end. That's a long time between today and January. That's 6 more months that people can move. It's continuously keeping your updated information. My goal is that we do not lose any member that is truly eligible for Medicaid.
Is it just a disabled population that's always eligible for Medicaid based on what the government gives them?
No, ma'am. It's
It's
anybody that, as long as their income is a certain level.
So that doesn't impact like state cuts or anything,
right?
Or budget? Okay.
Not right now, no. And just so everybody knows, we're almost tipping over the 2 million mark. We're at like 1,989 million members on Medicaid. So my goal, our fear is that we're going to lose a lot of our Medicaid members, and they're still eligible just because they're not, we don't have their contact information. And the other thing that I'm preaching, and I've openly admitted, I was on a call with the governor as I was giving my spiel with an organization he asked me to speak with, is that I'm beyond asking. Now I'm at the point of begging. Please, if you know a family member that works at a physician's office or a school teacher that they know they have Medicaid, be sure to get the word out, because every state, we all have that fear, is that we're going to lose so many members just because they're not the contact.
We had a similar thing yesterday with in our committee where we were discussing the problems that LRS is having with hiring, and a lot of the groups said, hey, just send us something. We'll send it out to our membership and put it on our social media and website. So I don't want to create the words myself, but if you send something that we will post it and send it out.
Sure do. We have a pink letter toolkit that was issued. So I can, and it's actually on our website, but I don't know the actual website name. I mean, I know it's LDH / something, but we have a pink letter toolkit. You might even
Is it still the same, like, are we, because we did it last month and I.
Yeah, it's the same. I'm
So
coming.
still telling people to look for it, because if they have.
No, right. The message now needs to be, and we are updating that, and coming up with our next outreach campaign, is that if you haven't received a pink letter, then Medicaid, you need to call Medicaid, basically.
And
is that.
that's in that pack, because we're doing our newsletter now, so that's.
The wording is there.
The wording is there. It
For
should be
that,
there.
okay, got it.
And
Also, too, didn't you just say August the 19th is the deadline?
No. August 14th would be the deadline if we know from the federal government if the public health emergency is actually going to end in October. That is the date, because that would be 60 days prior to the October date.
If you have two Medicare and Medicaid, would that also be affected for both of them or just one?
Just Medicaid. When you just need to make sure that Medicaid has your right mailing address so that we can mail you letters. And then you need to read it and respond.
If the person responds, okay, and I'm talking about any family. If they respond, do they have the mailing address to mail it back in?
Yes, ma'am. It's on the letter. When you get the letter from Medicaid, it tells you how you can send it back. You can mail it, you can call, you can fax it, you can email it. Yeah, all of that is on the letter.
Oh, okay, I'm just making sure, understanding, right, where you are going with it.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing is with that is, I know our messages update your contact information. The next piece is not only update it, but check your mail, read your mail and respond. That's going to be the next campaign, because we do get a lot of members that do not, they may get it, but then they don't respond. So we're just trying to make sure that we don't lose our members that are truly eligible. That is the goal. And that is all I have. If anybody else has any questions on that.
There are some questions.
Dr. McKee, you have you're recognized.
Thank you. So if the individual does not respond, then it's assumed that we can't find them and that their Medicaid will be discontinued. Is that correct?
Correct. So typically the response times is every year, by the federal regulations, we are to review every individual's Medicaid eligibility every 12 months. So we will send them a renewal packet on some individuals. And if they don't respond with that within 60 days, they will lose their coverage. But if we have a lot of electronic data sources from the federal government, it's called the hub that we receive. And if throughout the year, something comes in that says, hey, it's different than what we have on file, we send what we call request for information, and the individual has 10 days to respond. And if they do not respond, then we actually close them at the end of the next month. So yes, that's how that process works.
Where and who can an individual contact? Is there a number or website that an individual can contact to check whether or not they still have Medicaid, and to inform Medicaid that, hey, I didn't get the letter, or, I just want to let y'all know that I'm still, wanting my services?
Yes, there is. And I will get back to the board of the ways to contact Medicaid. I don't have it. I don't want to give you the wrong number. I have 800 numbers and I can't remember which one is the right one. I will send that contact that information to the board and they can disseminate to everyone.
Was it included in the toolkit?
Yeah, that was going to ask, can you put it somewhere as soon as possible? Because I think we may have listeners that may be in that situation. Their 10 days has probably gone by, or their 60 days or whatever.
We have not mailed that information right now. That's the worry about the contact information. We have not been doing that during the public health emergency. because we can't actually act on that information. So they have not received a renewal packet, nor a request for information right now.
Not yet. Okay, all righty. Thank you.
That's why my big concern is that we haven't been communicated that way with our members. So once the public health emergency does end, where are our members, and do we have the right information to contact them?
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. McKeon, I did want to just mention that there was an LADDC news with the Medicaid Pink Letter campaign that we sent out on June 15th. So I'll put that link in the chat, and there's the website, the phone number, and all the ways that you can get in contact with Medicaid if you didn't receive your letter.
Thanks. I don't see it in the chat, but maybe that's something else. I think the chat's slow. Oh, there it is. Thank you so much. I think I just see it. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Kathy Dwyer has her hand.
Okay, Ms. Dwyer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one or two questions, and then if I may, I'd like to add a little information about the dental program for adults with IDD, since I am chair of that committee, that task force. Questions for Tara. I had shared the Pink Letter campaign on the Louisiana Emergency Resources for Individuals with Disabilities page on Facebook and got several questions. Several families did not receive the Pink Letter. However, when they went into the portal, their information was up to date. So should they assume then everything's okay or still call Medicaid? And then the second question is, I received the Pink Letter, but if I remember correctly, it says if I received it, my information is up to date, so I did not have to do anything. Was there still something I was supposed to do? Because if there was, I didn't.
No, ma'am. So to answer the first question, if for some reason they didn't receive the Pink Letter and they looked in Medicaid and their contact information is accurate, they do not need to do anything. And you're right, the Pink Letter says if you received it, you don't need to respond, because that means that we have your updated contact information or your current contact information. And again, I do know that several members have reached out and said, yeah, I remember seeing that, but I think I threw it away and never really opened it after we started kind of showing them what the letter looked like. And again, we know that the mail service these days may be hit or miss in some of the areas of the state. So, but there's nothing we can do about that piece of it. We just would rather be careful now than someone lose their coverage later.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if I may, as chair of the Louisiana Dell Task Force for Adults with IDD, I want to add some information that Tara, thank you for presenting. The task force has worked about 3 years on this issue and got Act 450 passed, as well as HB 55, and I don't know the act corresponding with that bill. But anyway, in addition to additional monies being appropriated for anesthesia and hospital facility fees in order to get hospitals to open up more ORs for those individuals that may need general anesthesia, even for just a simple dental exam and cleaning. We have also worked with Medicaid to add an additional code for dentists to bill for the additional time that they will need to spend with an individual with a disability, particularly if they have sensory issues, aversion issues, or some kind of chronic medical issue that requires an more lengthy time than a typical patient would. And we're still working with Medicaid on improving that system. We're working with the Dental Association, OCDD, Dr. Dent in particular. I don't know if any of you have seen a video I shared on social media of Dr. Dent working with my daughter. He was exceptional and used a lot of positive behavior intervention supports techniques, which he learned as a parent of a young man with autism. We're working with the Dental Association, OCDD, and others to train all dental practitioners. We're also working with the ARC of Louisiana and the Provider Association to train DSWs and all other caregivers. And I'm working specifically with Dr. Dent in sending a proposal to the Louisiana Dental Association for continuing education for all general dentistry. And we're hoping to make that mandatory every so many years, or at least that they complete the CE within a certain period of time and maybe repeat it so many years later. So if there are any issues that any families may experience that the plan is not addressing their needs, I would appreciate hearing from you.
Kathy, could you just repeat the name of the organization that you are working?
Yeah, it's Louisiana Dental Task Force for Adults with IDD. It was formed by the State Advisory Committee. It started 3 years ago when Mary Kay Cohen, a family member, was on the SAC and kept bringing up concerns she had about one of her family members receiving or being unable to find appropriate dental services for her brother who had significant disabilities, typically some sensory or aversion issues. And when I joined the SAC, I have the same challenges with my daughter who has some sensory and aversion issues. So I made a motion for us to start a task force. So it's really a task force of the SAC. And Mary Kay and I are the ones who formed the task force. We invited quite a few people, and it's a mix of people. We have family members, we have dentists, we have hygienists, we have the ARC of Louisiana is a member, Karen Scallon is a member. We have some of the, what they call the dental benefit plan managers, DentaQuest, a member, Healthy Blue is a member, the insurance, providers are members. So we have everybody providing input. What we did was identified what all the needs and barriers were, and they came up with solutions to those barriers and how to address the needs. Wrote a final report that we submitted to OCDD and the DD Council. I believe it's on the DD Council's website somewhere. That was submitted about 2 years ago. And then since that report, we made contact with Representative Butler, who jumped on carrying the bill because she was having trouble getting dental services for her son with autism. So that's when she submitted HB 172, which I helped write. And then it passed unanimously. We're very thankful and grateful for that. And then the next year we passed HB 55, which included residents of ICFDD facilities and group homes. Act 450 only addressed individuals with developmental disabilities on the now, row, and supports waiver because OCDD and Medicaid did not have enough time to come up with a fiscal cost for what it would be for the ICFDD residents because their reimbursement formula is a little more complicated. So they had to first conduct a study, and then that's why we then submitted the bill the next year to cover those residents. But we're very proud of what we accomplished, and we haven't stopped. We're going to keep working on this until we can get it all right.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dwyer.
You're welcome.
And also for Kathy Dwyer, I have seen that video that you posted with your daughter. I think that is the right way of going with it. Keep going for what you're doing. That is the very best way to do it.
Thank you, Rosalind.
I wanted to see that.
Yeah, our goal is to try to make sure our loved ones get the service they need in the least restrictive environment. Sedation and general anesthesia isn't always the answer. Those can cause problems itself. So we feel if we can get the dentist to learn a few simple techniques to make our loved ones feel comfortable and be able to do some of the basics preventive. It would keep them from having to go in the hospital for anything more serious, or even having to go into the hospital just for dental cleaning and exam. So it will be a cost savings measure as well.
And look, Kathy.
Thank you.
I'm
All right,
gonna
now we
ask-
have,
I'm gonna
okay, now we have Ms. Jill Kano that is recognized by the chair.
Okay, Miss Kathy, I did have that act number for you, but now I seem to have lost it.
366.
Yes, 366.
Thank you so much. I'm getting a few more gray hairs, so I don't remember the numbers as easily as I used to.
And if you need
Appreciate
help,
it.
Kathy, I'm with you all the way.
Thank you, Rosalind.
All right.
I'm so confused.
We gotta enjoy life.
Miss Amy. Oh, I'm sorry.
You have the floor, Jill.
Miss Amy, if you have a minute, can you call me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. The report requires no action and will be placed on file.
Ms. Banks, you do
Yeah.
have a couple of comments in the chat.
Oh, we had Chris. Okay, go ahead. Can you read those for me?
Sure. The first comment is from Ms. Liz Gary. It says, Tara, how long is the TEFRA process taking from application to approval? Has anyone received TEFRA and then been transferred to a waiver? How long is that taking?
Hold on one second. I don't have the stats in here.
I'll go ahead and read the other comment while Ms. LeBlanc is getting that information. The other is just from Dr. McKee. She just wanted to clarify, if you received the letter and did not respond, it is assumed that your contact information is correct. I just want to be sure that our families know this information clearly. And that's regarding the pink letter campaign that Ms. LeBlanc talked about earlier.
And that is an accurate statement. If they've received it, then unless they move again and change addresses before the public health emergency ends.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're trying to read an Excel spreadsheet on a phone, so.
My sympathy.
So maybe what we could do, if it pleases the council, is we do have a lot of things that we track. It's kind of hard to look at here, and even if we sent this, it may be difficult. We are trying to track where there's gaps, what is the length of time? I mean, I can tell you guys what we're tracking. What we're tracking is how long is it taking to do the level of care, average time to complete level of care determinations, average time to complete the medical MEDT.
The medical determination.
Eligibility.
Determination.
The average time for us to be able to get for documents returned and uploaded into the meds, the average pending time from application, the average pending time from the level of care mailing. So we are tracking all of that and we're looking at it. We get a report weekly so that we can take a look at that. And then if we do see, hey, this seems to be taking a lot of time, getting back our team back to the drawing board so we can say, hey, what might we need to do to address that? So again, we track that by week. It's just kind of hard to give information. I don't know if there's been anyone who's gone from TEFRA to waiver since January, but we can, we have, so with TEFRA, we have some team members from OCDD and team members with Medicaid that work together as part of a team. We can ask them to add that to the data that they're tracking or looking at to see, I guess both ways, because people could do either. They could be on TEFRA and shift to a waiver, or we have had some people who've been on waiver but don't really receive waiver services. So they've actually asked, could they just get TEFRA instead of being on waiver? So you have the ability go either way. I don't know that anyone's done that yet, but we can ask them to add that to the data tracking.
All right, Ms. Angela, you're recognized by the floor. By the
Thank
chair.
you. Thank you, Ms. Banks. I actually applied for TEFRA in January when the first application process went out. It took approximately about 6 months. I'm just receiving information. I got the TEFRA. Then I was told that I finally got approved for the Children's Choice. So before all this happened, or by the time I got Mason's information, it was about 6 months. And so I'm still getting paperwork. So everything's still not really finalized, but I did give some information. So for me, it was about 6 months.
All right, thank you. All right, this report requires no action and will be placed upon the file. All right, our next item of business is the report of the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. The chair recognizes Ms. Julie Foster Hagan for the report.
All right, you guys all have my report. I'll hit a couple of highlights from the report, and then I'm happy to take any questions. So some of the some of the data that you guys see, we've modified a few reports ago. The data that we presented, hopefully trying to be a little more helpful. We are near the end because of when we submit our report. We still don't have June, but I do like for folks to be able to kind of look at how things have played out for the year. So in the data tables that you see, the first data table tells you the number of people who receive waiver services. You can see that for the last 3 years by month. And then you can also, I like to take a total number to be able to just look from year to year, how many people we have that are receiving waiver services. And so we do have more people receiving waiver services this fiscal year, and we will need to add, that number may go up once we add our June data. So you can see over the last 3 years in that first table, that's just a straight number of people who receive services. And then on the next table on page 2, that chart waiver service payments. Of those total people who receive waiver in the first table, what you see here is the amount of money that is spent on those waiver participants, again, by month, and then trying to look at a total. This is really important. I know it's been important to the DD Council when we shifted to a prioritized system where people with a SUN score of 3 or 4 receive a waiver offer. We used to have a certain number of slots. So just kind of, here's the number of people who can receive or be in the waiver. When we shifted to that prioritized system, we really look at not a number of slots, but here's the budget we have allocated to waiver. And so as long as we have the budget to support it, we can continue to give waiver offers to people who have 3s or 4s. And so this is why we now really closely watch the budget as opposed to kind of what the slot count is now in the waiver. So again, you can see the amount of money, and that's comparative. Again, the number that you see there, the $542 million will go up because we don't have our expenditures for the last month. So in the report in October that we submit, you'll be able to see what the full spend was for state fiscal year 22. And then the last chart you see, and the reason why it's important for us to look at the average cost of our waiver is because as we start to build our budget or look at our budgeting. So like we've started right now developing our budget. That'll be the budget that's presented for next fiscal year. And so the average cost of waiver helps us to be able to know what that budget is. So the way that we get that information, it's not as simple, but it is just kind of, this is the number of people that we support. This is the amount that we spent. And then we can tell on average how much are we, as the average amount that we spend per waiver participant. And as you can see in state fiscal year 20 and 21, The average cost was about 44,000 per year per waiver participant. It does look like that number may go up a little in state fiscal year 22, but we won't know for sure until we get that June number, so that we can do that comparison. The next, moving along in the, I guess, any questions? Do you want me to go through my whole thing? and
Yeah,
then
go
take
ahead,
questions?
do the whole thing,
Okay.
and then afterwards, we'll get the questions.
On page 3, there is information about the screening for urgency of need. During, and I apologize that I had to step out, so I wasn't here when we went over the self-determination meeting, but there were some questions in that meeting about the SUN process, how, especially as it relates to the TEFRA, kind of the combination, as I said earlier, people being able to move, and kind of the process of saying, if somebody is newly eligible for OCDD services, and they say that they need support, do they go through the TEFRA process and or the SUN process to see if they need a waiver, and which comes first? We're working on tweaking that process a bit to make sure that it is as efficient as it needs to be. And I shared that at the self-determination committee meeting in October. I will share with folks during that meeting sort of what process changes we make. I'm just not really able to talk about them right now because we've been told there's issues and concerns, and we're in the process of looking at what we need to do to potentially change that process. Now, we're also dedicating some additional resources for the SUN screening, and we've also heard some concerns from families. So we're updating training for the people who do provide those SUN screenings for folks. So I'll be happy to share a more, and we'll include it in the report, but I'll also have much more to report on next quarter on that, and what we heard, what we modified, and what our new processes are at this point. On the 4th page of the report, it talks a lot about employment. One of the things I wanted to just sort of highlight for folks is the information on the home and community-based settings rule. So CMS put out what they call the home and community-based settings rule several years ago. There's been several extensions. The philosophy behind the home and community-based settings rule is that people with disabilities should be in integrated settings and a part of their community, and that our service systems, if they get Medicaid funding, should be able to support that. So we have certain requirements that we look at for settings. We had 2 main areas in OCDD that we had to pay close attention to. If you live in a home and community-based waiver, and your provider owns the place that you live, instead of you having your own lease or owning your own apartment, then that needed to have extra scrutiny. So we've now visited anybody who's in waiver and the provider owns to make sure that certain criteria are met. And then we had a lot of work to do around employment and our day programs in terms of helping make sure that they're integrated, and that they're part of the community. So CMS has said there will be no more extensions. March of 2023 is the deadline for states to be in compliant. If we're not, then we start to lose federal funding for the programs that are not in compliance. So we're doing a lot of work with those ADC providers. In October, we will know for sure all of the providers, who's in compliance, who's not. Now, about a month or 2 ago, CMS came out and said, even though we're not giving you extensions, states can ask for a corrective action plan. For example, if a provider can say, we're moving to be integrated, but we've not been able to open all the way back up yet because of COVID or because of the staffing shortage, it takes more staff to get folks in the community than to have everybody at a facility. And this is impacting our ability to fully implement our plan. Then you can ask for a corrective action. So we're wrapping our minds around CMS just telling us that last month. And we'll be working, we just did a survey with those providers so we can gather some additional information. But again, that's first and foremost on our minds. We want to do everything we can to help make sure that all providers are able to stay open, but that they're doing it in the way that is in line with what the intent of the settings rule is.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of work around that. Tara touched on the public health emergency, so we do have some additional information in our report about that. I don't know if folks highlighted, just want to highlight quickly our early steps program. There were several early steps providers who advocated during the legislative session and were able to get funding for a rate increase. They had not had a rate increase since, I believe, 2010.
That's
So
a shame, it's doing.
there's now the services, all early step services provided through OCD and as part of Medicaid state plan got a 30% rate increase. And then case management for early steps now it was about a 40% increase. So they can have $169 a month. It's a flat billing that they'll be able to do.
Why is the rate increase been like with the legislative since 2007? And just in general?
I don't know that
Like when I say rate increase, the people that support IDD, like if it's a personal care attendant, providers, DSP, because it's been like that with the ORCA GNO since 2007, and they've always had to arise from above.
There's been a lot of rate increases that have happened in the last couple of years.
Meaning higher?
Going up.
So I know the legislative session is over. So the ORCA GNO, that doesn't take an effect until October this year?
No, October 1st of 2021, there was a $2.50 per hour rate increase. The ARCA GNO doing the day programs and stuff, it's not exactly works out exact, but it equates to a $2.50 an hour because they get paid kind of for the day instead of.
So from last year, it's not going to end October this year. It's going to continue.
It's going to continue.
Okay.
And then just the last thing that I'll highlight, we include a lot about our OCD Resource Center. And so just wanted to highlight, we found that we had one of the issues we found is we seem to be getting a lot more what we call referrals for crisis placement. So people who live in the community and might be in jeopardy of having to go into an institution. So we noticed that about 6 months ago. So we revamped some of the way that we do things so that because what we found is our resource center includes psychologists, social workers, allied health professionals, nurses. And when we can go in and get our resource center team in early on, then we can typically be able to help 95 to 98% of the time somebody stay living in the community. When there's a delay in that, because there was some delays we found in getting those folks in there quickly, we found that unfortunately our numbers of kind of referrals for admissions to Pinecrest and what were starting to creep up, and we were really worried about that. So we did some changes and worked with our local governing entities to be able to revamp how we do things to get those folks in there. And we're starting to see already that that's no longer the case. And so we were able to address that. And so some of the data that you see in our report does share with you kind of where most of those crisis referrals come in and the information that we track and what we do. But again, we are really proud when the resource center gets involved, again, 95 to 98% of the time, we're able to help people resolve whatever the issue may be so that they can then continue staying in the community. So that's my report, but happy to take any questions, folks.
All right, do we have any questions from the council? Any public question?
I do.
Jill just covered all of my questions that I had.
All right, and I see they do have some comments in the chat. Brittany, can you read those for me, please?
From Ms. Kathy Dwyer said, great job, Julie. And Ms. Liz Gary said the resource center is fabulous. You do have a hand raised as well from Ms. Melinda Elliott.
All right, Ms. Elliott, you're recognized.
Thank you. I don't remember if it was the past DDC meeting or maybe a DDC meeting before that. I had asked for some information about the DSW workforce, specifically the numbers of people working as DSWs that were, I think at the time I didn't have good language, that were family members. Now I can refine that even more because I've learned a few things. I'm curious how many DSWs are family members and how many DSWs that are currently employed are the responsible party. Once the pandemic is going to end, and y'all please tell me it's going to end at some point, but once the pandemic ends, I'm really concerned about the DSW workforce.
So we don't have data that we track to be able to know if the DSW is a family member or not. Because if you were in a traditional provider agency, then the provider agency hired them. And so they're working as the direct support professional, and we haven't done anything to kind of flag them as a family member. Same in self-direction, if you were hired through the fiscal intermediary, we didn't necessarily do anything to flag that. We did early on in the pandemic do a survey to try to gather some information to be able to get that, but we don't currently have a way that we would be able to know, to be able to give the data on that, the number of family members that are currently employed and whether those family members are the responsible party. I'm blanking on the terminology there.
Can I still unmute and speak? Miss
Yes,
Banks?
ma'am.
No, you're
Thank
not on you.
So, oh yeah, I did unmute, right? Thank you, Miss Banks. So I'm just concerned that this is an important piece of information that is going to be even more important once the pandemic ends, how much of that workforce, how that workforce is going to change and in what ways it's going to change. And if we don't have data to know if we're talking about a substantial number or not, then we can't have a further discussion about what could or couldn't be done. Again, just my opinion.
Okay. Ms. Jill, you have your hand raised.
You have the floor, Jill.
It takes her a minute to unmute it. It just give her some time. She's kind of unmuted.
Thank you. Oh God, no, I'm gonna try again. Y'all are all so nice.
Hang on, just hang in there, Jill.
Jesus. Boy, as I'm raising my hand, questions to keep coming up, and I really thought I was gonna be quiet, but I love you so much.
I love you too.
Okay, you ever talked about old age was spot on because I have no idea what. Okay, so again, you said that all this, you just confirm this early tax budget was included in each one, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
There was an increase in House Bill 1 for so early steps gets confusing because you have children in early steps who are not Medicaid eligible.
Okay.
And so that money to pay for that comes out of the OCDD budget. Then you have kids in early steps who are Medicaid eligible. And so part of their services come out of Medicaid. There's 7 services in early steps that are Medicaid, approved Medicaid services. But we also have other services in Medicaid that are not part of Medicaid. So those services are also paid for the Medicaid eligible kids. The non-Medicaid services are also paid for through the OCDD budget. So it gets really confusing, but that's why when we talk about it, you'll see increases in OCDD and increases in Medicaid.
Okay, and then the goal, if it's okay with you, I have like 2 or 3 more questions.
I think we have time. I defer to Nicole. Yes, go ahead, Jill.
So our approved funding, these words don't, like, can I go on your website and find out like what exactly the start is and what exactly is value-based payment? And I know that you touched yesterday, you touched on what, I don't even know the word, you called it bonus something, but is there any way I can go online and read about what these things are?
Not right now, but we can make that happen.
Perfect. Okay. And I should be done.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, the report requires more action and will be placed upon file.
Ms. Banks, you do have one more comment in the chat
Okay.
from Ms.
Can you
Kathy
close?
Dwyer, and it's in relation to the concern that Ms. Elliott had brought up. Ms. Dwyer says we probably should start generating that data so we know how bad the DSW shortage is and able to address the negative impact on families.
Okay.
And so I'm sorry, I have made a note. I have to figure out how we get it. The other thing I do just want to make sure folks know is that when the public health emergency ends, we have made changes to our waiver where family members will be able to continue to be paid caregivers. There are some exceptions there and guidelines or guardrails that we had to put in place, but it doesn't mean that when the public health emergency ends, that family members that are paid caregivers are no longer able to be paid caregivers. So that's the other thing. As I've made the note, I'm trying to wrap my mind around how do we get the data, but then how do we use the data in a way, there's some exceptions that it can't be more than 40 hours per week. And I'm blanking on, there's a couple of other things, but then I have that down as a note. I'll take that back and figure out if there's a way that we can get it and get it in a meaningful way based on the changes that we made in our waiver that does still allow family members to be paid caregivers.
Okay. And there's also another public comment by Ms. Dwyer. There's still a question about continuing tutorship through, I don't know if that was. Were you finishing your comment, Ms. Dwyer? Because it just ends after that.
I can comment on that if you
Okay.
want me to. So we had several items with family as paid caregiver that we did not finalize. And within this quarter, we plan to get our focus groups back that was looking at defining what extraordinary care. So if you are a legally responsible relative, I think that's the right word, then you have to be able to show that you're being paid to do something that's extraordinary care. We have to define criteria and guidelines for defining extraordinary care. We also have to show that if a family member is a paid caregiver, that is in the best interest of the individual, and to be able to use self-determination for adults to be able to comfortably say if they don't want their family member to be their paid caregiver. And we need to have mechanisms in place that allow for self-determination for individuals to be able to say that. All of that will have to be documented in the person's plan of care. So we were coming back to that group. Another thing was in the definition of legally responsible relative, CMS says that there should be a state definition of what that is. We've not been able to find that state definition. So it may be that we have to also put some things in statute, but that group was going to kind of come back and take a look at all of those things. So we will be getting that focus group back together within this quarter so that we can start to define those things. I think that's what she was talking about.
Okay. All right, if there's no more further discussion. Oh, she does? All right, I'm sorry. Jill?
Okay, Brendan, didn't we refresh my memory because it was either April or January in our committee agenda? Didn't we have a link about with all the data as it pertains to support coordination rates?
I would have to go back and check. I'm not sure if we had that information on a farm. It may have come up in the meeting, but I don't know if there was something linked. I'd have to go back and check.
I'll go back. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on. Give me a minute, y'all. The next item of business is the Office of Public Health, and the chair recognizes Miss Patty. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name all the way correctly. Patty Vecchio, okay, for the report.
Patty B.
Good afternoon, or good morning. I have the orange. So my report is this bright orange or yellow report. It's rather lengthy. I work for the Bureau of Family Health, and we administer many initiatives and programs that touch families in the state. And so if you have any questions for some of the programs that I'm not close to, I'll be happy to bring your questions back to them. But of most interest is Children's Special Health Services. This program continues to provide subspecialty services for families of children and youth with special health care needs and provider shortage areas. So these subspecialty clinics are available to those who meet the definition or eligibility criteria set in the rules, as well as financial eligibility. And for more information, I realized that I don't see the website. If you want any more information on these programs, you can find it at ldh.la.gov/CSHS. And all that information is available there for those subspecialty clinics. Also, we have a family resource center. Our focus of late has been really aligning this work within the Bureau to provide those family supportive services for all the families that we engage with through our various programs. We recently launched Cohort 1 with our Louisiana Birth Defects Monitoring Network program, where we did direct outreach to families who are identified through surveillance activities and offered the services of resource and referral to these families. And next report, we will have an analysis of that first cohort, but internally, I've seen the preliminary data and we feel very confident that we are offering an improved service to these families. We also work with our Families Helping Families partners on around ensuring that families in the community have access to resource and referral services, so that expanding that reach to all children and youth with special health care needs in our state. We continue with a transportation assistance program. So if families that are eligible for children's special health services need assistance with transportation to medical appointments, treatments, surgical procedures, and that the Medicaid transportation is not does not meet the need of the family, they may be eligible for this transportation stipend. So they can reach out to the Family Resource Center around this if they need any assistance with filing that application. Other than that, the remaining information in the report, I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions from the council? The public? All right, Brennan, is there any in the chat box?
No, ma'am. No hands raised or no chats.
All right, this report requires no action and will be placed upon file. All right, our next item of business is the standing council member reports. Our first report is coming from the Office of Aging and Adult Services. And Chair, your support to the agency representative presenting the report.
They sent a report. I don't think anybody's here. There was someone from the agency on the call earlier, but I don't see her now.
I don't think she's there.
Oh, they were scheduled after lunch.
I don't think
They're scheduled for after lunch, so maybe.
Yeah, she might come later.
She might
So if
come
we
later.
wanna,
Okay, we'll table that and wait until after lunch. All right. The next item of business is the report from the Department of Education. The department, your support to Ms. Meredith Jordan.
Absolutely, thank you. And we had a lot of really detailed discussion yesterday that Dr. McKee shared earlier from our committee meeting. So I'll kind of go through my report. What are some of those high-level key activities and support since our last council meeting? And so you all know that our division stays extremely busy. We support across the department. We are that voice for our students with disabilities.
Wow.
In all offices, our high school experience office, college and career readiness, early childhood. So you'll see here, we've been very busy supporting and providing professional development, presenting at various conferences. We held a foundational charter school day where we presented on best practice for students with disabilities, best instructional practice. Compliance monitoring was a part of that. And you'll also see coming up actually tomorrow, one of our key activities here on the report the department's hosting our very first early childhood conference. The theme is Powering Up Early Childhood. Our division is going to be presenting a session there really focusing on inclusive practices for students with disabilities in our early child care centers in pre-K. So again, just kind of that cross-office collaboration that we're doing so much and staying very busy this summer doing. That presentation is titled Making Magic Happen, where we are really going to give our child care centers a checklist to where they feel like they are prepared to take students with disabilities when those families come and say, I want my child involved in early child care and those supports there, so that child care centers feel they feel equipped and they know the tools, they know the environment, the communication, and the environment setup supports that have to be there in order to be ready to properly support those students. And so we're happy to be supporting at that conference this weekend. We've also been in several school systems presenting at summer professional development around their special education symposiums, various special education departments around the state that have asked us as a department to come in and provide professional development.
Packet are you reading from?
The Louisiana Department of Education report, Jill. It's pink. It's pink.
No, it's me, Rosalind.
Rosalind, I'm sorry.
Is that a color paper? What color is it?
Like a light pink.
I like. And it's probably not helping that I'm not going in order. So I'll make that correction. I'll stop jumping all over the place.
Like a dark pink?
No, it's like
It's a
this
light pink.
This light pink.
Oh,
See it.
Did you find it?
because I'm lost again.
So I'll start back at the top and kind of and go in order. It's probably helpful if I do that. So I did want to follow up and let you all know that our IDA set aside grant application that we involved this group in that process, received a lot of stakeholder and community input. I truly believe as part of the communication here that all of you as stakeholders help us get out that word and those public surveys and public comment periods. So our award was approved. Our total IDA set aside award amount is $24,231,350. That is a slight increase from past years. So that is a great step moving forward. I think signaling from the federal government that they want to provide additional funding for students with disabilities and to support education for our students. I linked again to our application. I've linked to those in the past, but just wanted to include that. Again, you have our final approved application there linked, as well as our project descriptors. If you're really, if you haven't looked at it yet, those project descriptors will give you much more detail about what are some of those activities that we are doing, that the application doesn't necessarily detail out, but something that we definitely want to keep open and transparent and provide to you all as stakeholders, or what are those activities look like. The next piece on my report talks about some new April Dunn Act resources that we released in May at our Teacher Leader Summit. We released 2 new resources. We have a set of resources around April Dunn Act implementation already on our website. The 2 newest released resources, one is a parent guide. We work very closely with our Families Helping Families Centers, really diving into the April Dunn Act implementation. I know they support families who have a lot of questions around that and how that opportunity can increase the high school experience for our students with disabilities and lead them to success if that opportunity is needed. So we have a new parent resource there that we will be also providing some additional development on.
The other tool that we released that is new around April Dunn Act is an implementation tool for school systems. So we've had this opportunity previously, Act 833. We've had this opportunity for several years now with students with disabilities, but you all know as staff overturn, we have to continue this opportunity moving forward. We have to continue to the development, continue the communication, so that we have that consistency and that we know this opportunity is being used to support students. So we have an implementation tool that we released. We'll be doing some additional development with school system level leaders in order to take a look, use this tool and self-assess as a school system. Am I implementing this opportunity to the fullest extent? Am I implementing this opportunity appropriately for my students with disabilities, for all of those who need that opportunity? So we felt like that was a real next step resource that was needed, and we'll be providing ongoing support for both of these tools moving forward. The next update that I wanted to go through on my report is around some new releases. At the department, literacy has been a huge initiative for us. As Dr. Brumley came on, there was a real shift, a real focus on literacy. So I wanted to provide you all some updates around some specific tools that will impact our students with disabilities and educators who are supporting them, and those students who we know continue to struggle to read on time. And so one of those we're calling our LIFT kit, our foundational literacy intervention toolkit. This toolkit was released this summer. There are a set of activities. There are diagnostic assessments there, ready-made for educators to diagnose what is that specific reading issue that a student is having, and then connects them with some specific activities for educators to help support and help intervene. And so it includes those activities, those interventions. We also are releasing what we're calling extensions, because we can't forget those students who are exceptional or who are gifted and who are on level and need extension to continue to push those students. So we're releasing some extension activities. We have guidance documents, again, providing support to teachers around how to annotate text, how to support students to read independent, how to use partner reading, how to use rubrics and models to support students and really guide them and scaffold them into reading on grade level. So we're going to be providing additional documents. This is, again, like a first release of this literacy intervention toolkit. We are having regional literacy professional development this month. You may have seen some of that being communicated on our social media page. Of course, I am always that voice and always encouraging our school systems to have their special educators attend these trainings as well. Have your interventionists attend these trainings as well. Often those are the individuals. Our special educators and our interventionists are the ones who are often supporting our students with disabilities in reading. And so we need those individuals understanding and having access to these tools as well. And the next update and piece I wanted to bring to you all is closely tied to that. So another thing that we hear very often is, yes, we're focusing a lot on literacy in the early elementary grades, but we also know, especially some of our students with disabilities, have some of those reading challenges in middle school, sometimes in high school, unfortunately. But so what we are doing in our office, we are going to use some of our state professional development grant money to provide free access to literacy training modules for our special educators, interventionists in grades 4 through 8. So kind of bringing that literacy focus up and providing some development to those middle school educators as well, who we hear, hey, we have students who are struggling too. We need to be in some of these science of reading trainings as well. So we're going to have that opportunity
We are already gaining interest. We hope to start releasing modules very soon. I'd like for them to be released yesterday, but there are processes and state procedures that have to happen. But we're going to release them as soon as possible. And our educators will have access to these modules all throughout this year. Our thinking there is that this training takes some time. If you hear or if you know educators in the school system in our elementary schools who are going through science of reading, it is very intensive training. There are numerous hours. There are some specifics what I really like around dyslexia. And so there's some supports there and how to identify that. And so what we want in providing this year-long access for educators is that way school systems can work this. It's there. Once I register, I'm registered, I'll have access to all of them, but I can work it into a PD plan throughout this year. And it gives them time with other required trainings that they go through. We don't want it to feel like something else that they have to do, but we want them to be encouraged and feel like, okay, I can work this into a year-long plan. I don't have to box it in and do many hours of training, in a short amount of time. So we try to give them enough time to complete all of that training and work it into a current plan. I have a question, Christy.
Yes, I wanted to ask, but since the 4th through 8th grades are having this training, would it be possible if like some of our, like for me instance, we get many 9th graders for us to hire, I teach it's self-contained, but they're with me all day, but they come in at like a 1st grade reading level, but they could be so much higher because they were never taught the necessary skills, and that we're having to do a lot of this extra, reading skill information, teaching it to them. And do you think it would be okay for like some of the 9th grade teachers to keep, to attend this so that we can have the same training that they're getting in 4 through 8, because we don't want to stop it.
Right.
Just to keep the carryover, because we have some, once they get to 9th grade,
right,
we don't want to lose it.
Christy, as long as we have enough spots in that range of teachers that we're looking at, and we have a set number of seats, which we have thousands that we're going to fund, certainly we wouldn't turn down anyone if we don't have to, for sure.
Okay.
Really good question though. We definitely see that high school need as well. So we're excited about all of the literacy initiatives that are being launched at the department, and the collaboration that my office is having with that team to say our special educators have to be in this training. Our interventionists have to be in that training. We know that the vast majority of students who are referred for special education, often that initial reason is our reading struggles, and they haven't learned to read. So we're excited about these opportunities. I covered the early childhood conference, and I'll end with kind of future shifts, where we're going in terms of responsiveness to legislative session. We talked quite a bit yesterday around our SPED camera law and those revisions. And what we are doing for August, Bessie, is we are expeditiously taking that legislation, that language, and we're going to codify that into our own Bessie policy. We're going to be amending and updating Bulletin 741, which is our Bessie policy for school administrators. And so it was important to us to take that language. Yes, it's law, but now we're going to place it into state bulletin as well. And so we're working on that as quickly as possible to get that to August Bessie. We are also moving forward, working in response to Resolution 31 that creates the Related Service Commission. So we are reaching out to those partners listed in the legislation to get their appointed members so that we have that commission formed per legislation by mid-August. And then we will hold our first organizational meeting by mid-September. And so we're excited about that. The purpose of that commission will be to study, look at policy around and make changes to the way related services are provided in our school systems. And so we know there are some policy updates that are needed there to match national averages around related service providers in our school systems. I think the challenge for school systems is finding, we've heard that from almost everyone here, recruiting and finding those highly qualified individuals to fill some of those roles. But we certainly are excited to work alongside those partners on that commission. Moving forward as well with Senate Bill 98, with some updates to the Louisiana Commission for the Deaf and some of their working with them on some administrative code around specifically that pertains to the department around supporting educational interpreters. So we're going to work with them moving forward on those supports for our educational interpreters in our state. We will also moving forward in response to Senate Bill 176, look at any updates to policy that may be needed around the legislation that updated the definition of blindness, some of the assessments that are required. We think some of those are already in our policy. That legislation was a little older and needed some updates, but if we have any response, we're working with that VI coalition that we work very closely with to look at our policy and make sure that everything is reflected, and that moving forward, we are providing a legislative update in response to all of this to our special education leaders, and what next steps they need to take and what professional development needs to happen around some of these new requirements and any supports. Like, for example, some of the CVI assessments, cortical vision impaired assessments that are required. Do we need to partner and have some trainings around some of those to update our school system? And I will, I didn't put it in my report, but I know many folks here are always interested, just to kind of let you all know, our Fed advisory panel meetings are posted on our website for next year. Our first one was supposed to be September 21st, but there is a national states Fed director conference at that time. So we're going to be putting out an update to our September meeting date, but you can tentatively mark your calendars for September 27th. Is the date that we're looking to move our very first SEEK meeting. But you can find all of our other dates. If anyone has any questions about those, I'm happy to give them out if you can't find them. And that concludes my report, Chair.
I would like those dates if you can.
I can read them out if So our first one, tentatively September the 27th. We have a November the 16th meeting, a January 25th meeting, January 25th, 2023, a March 22nd.
All right, you saying September the 11th?
September 27th.
Oh, 27th.
That one's tentative, Rosalind.
Huh?
That one's a tentative date. I'll confirm it.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's the other ones besides that one?
November 16th.
November.
Are these in New Orleans?
They're in Baton Rouge at our Claiborne.
Okay, Baton Rouge, okay, basically. Okay.
16. And what else would be there?
January 25th.
Wait a minute, January? Of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute, what was the numbers again?
We can just send them.
I can email them. I can send them out, Rosalind, if that's easier.
Now, I'm understanding you. I'm trying to use my hearing aid. Sometimes I can't hear with a hearing aid.
You got January 25th.
25th. Oh, okay. Now I do.
March 22nd.
Okay, the 22nd.
Yeah, March and June 21st.
And June 21st. Okay.
All right, was that all of your questions, Rosalind?
Yes, it is.
All right, Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask for the purposes of adhering to the agenda and staying on time, is there a possibility that the Department of Education could remain after lunch for questions? Because I don't want to seem like her report is being rushed through. It seemed like it was kind of being rushed. And also I want to ask if we can allow for questions for a report to happen after lunchtime, because I do know we're already 10 minutes into some people's lunchtime. Thank you, Chair.
Will be here?
I'll be here.
Okay, well, we can hold off for council and public comment until after lunch. So if there's no objection, we're gonna break for an hour. So the time right now is 12:12, and then we'll be back at 1:12.